We are the #1 Knights Academy in the magic resistance test. The Archmage puts his hand over the boy's head, tells him to get ready, and then activates the blazing inferno. The boy tries to resist, but after 57 seconds he drops to his knees. Then comes the girl that people said was a genius. She knew that this fire magic was an illusion, and she only had to resist the burning. Her clothes were beautifully set on fire. Everyone was shocked when the old man told her that she had proven herself after standing for 5 minutes. Other students went until it was time for a boy named Ray. The old man told him to get ready, but on the grandstand everyone was anxious, because red hair in this world is the sign of a curse. The moment Ray found himself in the mana space of the old man, he tried to get ready for the so-called Blaze Inferno, when all of a sudden a gigantic dragon appeared and bit straight into his body. Then suddenly the old Archmage was thrown far away. All the veteran knights were completely confused. They had never seen something like that happening. Trembling with fear, the mage said that this boy had the curse of him, the strongest creature this world has ever seen, and then he lost consciousness. Every professor mage in the grandstand could not believe what they had seen. How could a mere kid put an Archmage to sleep in 1 second? Sometime later at the dining room, every red-haired guy now is getting bullied by this duo, saying that these disgusting freaks should not be allowed to leave their homes. He leans on the red boy and tells him to avoid eating in the same place as them, so as not to curse their food. When suddenly a chicken thigh comes flying and hits the dude straight on his chin. When he goes to ask who did that, his face is instantly slammed to the table with Ray, telling the guy to repeat what he just said. One of the knights sees the commotion and everyone begs Ray not to kill the guy. But bro ain't letting this hair racism slide, and when the knight tells him to stop, he just pretends not to listen and keeps breaking the dude's arm. The knight repeated himself, but my boy does not care at all about him. Only after some pops he releases the dude and tells his friend that this is how you teach a lesson. But the knight asks why he disobeyed the order to stop. Ray just replies, "Sorry, my hearing is not that good," and walks away. Now bro is hated by the knights and archmages of this academy that he just arrived at. But considering that his goal is to kill everyone there, this is not really a problem. But why does he want to do that? See that red dragon defeated on the floor? That is Ray in his past life, the strongest being that survived alone for thousands of years to get revenge on mankind for killing his relatives. But funny enough, the second he closed his eyes as a dragon, he found himself as a baby. Bro went stone-faced like, why the fuck is there a human holding me? But without wings or claws, all he could do was wave his tiny arms. The little killer kept whining, and decided to use his ultimate move, his dragon breath, the same attack that once burned enemies to ash. At least that's what he expected. Instead, he just blew some air and spat in his father's face. His legendary breath was gone, reduced to baby spit, and he had no idea where his magic went. Then he faced his real final boss, his strict mother. Even the red dragon feared her, but she simply calmed him down, and reminded him his new name was Ray. To him, that pathetic name was an insult. Still, even as a helpless baby, Talon was glad he'd been reincarnated. Now he had another shot at revenge on the humans who wiped out his kind. In his heart, he swore to destroy humanity. While he laughs like a tiny maniac, his dad starts wondering what kind of baby they brought home. Even so, both parents adore him. Even when he babbles what are basically death threats, sleep suddenly takes over. He barely moved and he's already exhausted. Before passing out, Talon thinks humans have terrible stamina. Then time moves forward. Talon grows a little older and starts getting used to human life. Living with his family, he learns more about Scarlet and Jake. They raise him with real love and kindness. He also notices the villagers treat his family with respect, and this is when he first learns about adventurers. One day, the little dragon crawls to his mother for food and the villagers are amazed he already understands what he wants. They also start noticing his bright red hair, which looks nothing like his parents'. Jake explains it only turned red a few days ago. To Talon, that sounds like proof his powers may be returning. Later, he hears villagers whisper that the family might be cursed because of his hair, and that only makes him feel proud. His parents, though, still treat him like a normal little kid. He eats like a wild beast and makes a huge mess, trying his best to annoy them. And with Jake, even pee on him. But they still care for him. These humans love him more than anyone ever has, and to a dragon like him, that almost feels like torture. We also learn adventurers are rare, and Scarlet being a mage makes her even more unusual. Talon figures that if he ever gets his dragon powers back, revenge will be much easier. 2 years pass, and when children reach that age, they can take the mage evaluation. This is the day Talon finds out whether he has mana. Jake sends them off, and Talon rides with Scarlet in a cart. He's sure that as a reincarnated red dragon and the son of a mage, there's no way he'll fail. And if his magic returns, no one will stop him. When they reach town, the red-haired boy wakes from a nap and thinks his only problem is this weak human body. As Scarlet carries him through the market, he notices adventurers selling valuable beast crystals. Then a beggar asks one of them for food, only to get kicked away and warned not to interfere. People just pity the beggar and move on. Talon notices that even among humans, the strong still mock the weak. It reminds him of his past life when he tried to protect the weak but failed in the end. Soon they reach Roland Academy for the magic test, where a long line is already waiting. While waiting his turn, Talon watches other kids cry after failing. One child throws a fit and says it isn't fair, but Talon thinks that's foolish. This world was never fair. Eventually his turn comes, and his name is called as Ray Talon. The mage tells Scarlet to place her son's hand on the crystal ball. If a child can use magic, the crystal glows and its color shows their element. Talon eagerly reaches out, already imagining everyone being shocked. As a dragon, he believes he should have mastery over every kind of magic. But instead of gasps of awe, Scarlet suddenly starts crying. Talon first thinks she's overwhelmed by his talent, or happy they share the same element. But then he realizes the crystal isn't glowing at all. The old wizard sadly tells them Ray has no magic ability. Talon is stunned. How could the strongest red dragon be reborn without magic? Scarlet asks again, hoping there's some mistake, but the furious boy slaps the crystal ball with his tiny hands, convinced it's broken. The wizard picks it up and says there's nothing he can do. That only wounds Talon's pride more, and he spits out his pacifier, raging inside that he's the king of magic. Then he grabs the old man's beard and yanks hard, sure the wizard is lying and hiding his talent. Scarlet tries to stop him, but Talon keeps pulling, refusing to believe a dragon could be born with no magic. On the ride home, Talon starts thinking heaven is punishing him for killing so many humans, and wonders why he was reincarnated at all if this was his reward. Then he changes his mind. Maybe this is just a test, and if he can't become a mage, he'll find another path to revenge. Later during dinner, he looks at Jake and asks him, in broken words, to teach him how to fight. If he can't use magic, then he'll become a swordsman instead, and still chase his revenge. 2 more years pass, and Jake has been training him in swordsmanship. But Talon quickly learns revenge won't come easy. He hasn't beaten his father even once. During another practice match with wooden swords, Talon gets serious and vows to win. Watching Jake closely, he figures the key is to turn the instant Jake swings down, then strike from the side. He goes for it, but his legs get tangled, and Jake's wooden sword smacks him right on the head again. Ray wonders why it always ends like this. His mind knows what to do, but his small clumsy body can't keep up. Later he wakes up in bed after blacking out from the hit, and Jake just chuckles. Scarlet snaps at him for laughing and tells him to ease up. Ray is only 4. Jake mutters that the night trials are coming soon, and at this rate he won't pass. Still upset, Scarlet says he's pushing their son too hard, and reminds him Ray doesn't have to become an adventurer. There are plenty of other paths, but Talon says that's not it. Ray is just young and still can't fully control his body. They still have a whole year and he believes their son can make it into the Avarian Knight Academy. Hearing that, Ray thinks he still has 1 year before the night trials, but isn't sure that's enough. Then he reminds himself he's the reincarnation of a red dragon, so he shouldn't be this weak. Fired up again, Ray tells them he can do it, and vows to become the strongest person anyone has ever seen. To step up the training, Jake gives him a gift, a real sword they can use from now on. Ray is shocked to hold an actual blade, especially one that feels too big for him. Jake says it will help him improve his control faster, and leans in to say he has one more gift. Ray starts wondering what he's hiding. They head to the storage room, where Ray finds a magic puppet. Jake warns him not to take it lightly. It's powered by magic, and even students at Avarian Academy use these to train. Even so, Ray eyes the puppet like he isn't fully buying it. Jake then tells him to attack it, and Ray takes the challenge without hesitation. After loosening up his wrist, Ray swings with all his strength, and the puppet activates at level 1. But the moment his sword hits its shield, it fires back instantly, and knocks his sword out of his hand. When level 1 shuts down, Ray is left frustrated by another loss. Seeing that, Jake calms him down and says beating even the first level would be enough to pass the night trial. He also admits he had to call in a lot of favors to get this puppet. That gets Ray excited again, and he starts thinking he'll clear the trial soon. Determined this time, he trains until he drops to the ground from exhaustion. With a deep sigh, Ray admits his body still won't move the way his mind wants. It frustrates him more and more. At this pace, he won't even beat the puppet, let alone get his revenge. Then a voice behind him asks why he's so set on defeating a puppet. Startled, Ray raises his sword and looks around for where it came from. He spots a girl who had snuck up on him and gets flustered. The blonde quickly apologizes for scaring him and introduces herself as Amy. She says she lives in the village and noticed him training out here, so she came to warn him to leave before sundown. A little uneasy, Ray asks if this place is dangerous. Amy explains that it's safe in the morning, but since it's close to the forest, magic beasts can show up after dark. Ray is surprised by how much she knows, and Amy says it's because she gathers fruits and vegetables around here all the time. She offers to head down the mountain with him before it gets dark, and Ray quickly agrees. As they introduce themselves, Amy reveals she already knows who he is because he's famous in the village. That catches Ray off guard, though deep down he already knows why people know his name. The Talon family is admired in the village, especially Jake, and people often stop him when he's out. But when Ray walks beside him, some villagers whisper that the red-haired boy is cursed and worry it might spread. No one else in the village has hair like his. Ray knows people respect his parents, but fear him for no reason, making him an outsider no one really likes. That reminds him of his past life as a dragon. Maybe it's because adults always use stories about cruel red dragons to scare kids. Red should mean power, but humans treat it like evil. He can't help thinking how twisted that is. Humans wiped out his kind, yet dragons are the ones painted as monsters in stories. To Ray, their revenge was just self-defense, but humans use that as proof dragons were savage. Lost in those bitter thoughts, he gets pulled back when Amy asks what he's thinking about. After that, Ray snaps out of it and walks down the mountain with her. Amy says she's seen him here a lot lately and asks if he's been training. When he says he wants to be a swordsman, Amy thinks that's awesome since his father is the village's only swordsman. She asks if he's aiming for the Knight Academy, and he nods. Then she shares that her brother is taking the exam too, and claims nobody in the village can beat him. Still, he's jealous of Ray for being taught by his dad, since normal people don't get that chance. When Ray asks about her brother, Amy lights up and asks if he'd like to be friends with him so they can train together. Right then they hear footsteps, and Gary shows up. He rudely tells Ray to stay away from his sister. Amy quickly steps in front of Ray and tells her brother he didn't do anything wrong. Gary ignores that and questions why she's with the red-haired boy, calling Ray cursed and saying it could spread. He even checks her hair to see if it turned red. Amy gets annoyed while the two boys with Gary move in and mock Ray for walking with her. They keep piling on, saying his parents must have it rough raising a cursed child. Then they tell Ray and his family to leave the village because ordinary people like them don't want anything to do with his curse. One of them adds that those proud adventurers would never care about common villagers. That makes Ray clench his fist. He suddenly punches one bully straight in the face. Done holding back, he goes for Gary next, but one of the others jumps in and takes the hit. Still, the blow is so strong it sends Gary flying too. Ray makes it clear he only wants to beat the one who insulted his parents. Gary calls him Ray Talon and says he knows both his parents are adventurers and that Jake is a swordsman. Since Ray was trained, Gary challenges him to a fight and says they won't use weapons because he doesn't want to kill him. So the two toss their swords aside. Ray tells them they can all come at once. He doesn't care. The fight goes on as both boys trade punches, but Ray's weak human body gives out. Gary lands a heavy final blow and slams him to the ground. Bleeding on the dirt, Ray lies there while Gary asks if he's ready to admit defeat. But Ray still won't quit and somehow forces himself back up. Gary just keeps talking trash, saying he's disappointed. A great swordsman like Jake trained him, yet he's still useless. Gary brags that his own father is only a merchant, but he's still better. Then he tells Ray to give up on becoming a swordsman and find something he can actually do. Those words hit hard, and Ray drops to the ground in despair. When they get home, Amy scolds Gary for going too far. Gary insists Ray had it coming and warns her to stay away from him, since so many people fear the cursed red-haired boy. He says Ray's parents are adventurers, but theirs are just ordinary people. That only makes Amy angrier. She yells at him to get his own food and says she hates him before storming off. Left alone, Gary notices something on his hand. He looks at the mark and realizes that without his arm guard, Ray's first punch would have broken his arm, and Ray would have won. Later, Ray comes home covered in mud, bruises, and cuts. Scarlett, who was making dinner, turns and immediately sees he was in a fight. Ray tries to brush it off, claiming he just got hurt while training, but Scarlett can tell he's lying and wonders if other kids beat him up. Ray denies it and keeps acting tough, saying he's a man now while she checks his wounds. Jake hears that and praises his son for training so hard. Even with dinner close, Ray wants to practice again. His parents try to stop him, but he says it won't take long and wins them over. In the storage room, Ray sets the puppet to level 1. He dodges its attacks with ease because he already knows its pattern. Waiting for the right moment, he lines up his sword and swings, but the blade jams into a wooden post, shocking him. When he yanks on it, the sword starts to crack. While he's distracted, the puppet slams him from behind, and he cries out in pain. The next day, Ray heads up the mountain. There, he spots Amy waiting in the distance. She looks awkward and quietly greets him. When he asks if she was waiting for him, Amy apologizes for what her brother did. Ray tells her it wasn't her fault and blames himself, saying he just wasn't strong enough. That only makes Amy tear up. Tired of how troublesome humans are, the red-haired boy awkwardly tries to comfort her and realizes he really needs to learn how to talk to people. Then he takes an apple from her basket to show he accepts the apology. Amy tells him not to worry, Gary won't bother him again. From that day on, the blonde girl starts coming to the same spot every day. Before long, Ray gets used to having Amy beside him. Later, soldiers and horses gather outside the Talon home. Jake and Scarlett speak with their leader, who reports that nearby villages were attacked by some unknown creature. Jake is furious at the news. There are no clear witnesses, and the victims who were infected are too out of it to explain what happened. So the leader came to ask the adventurers for help. Scarlett is worried and confused, since those things normally don't come near human areas. She says she'll go too, but Jake refuses. It's only a recon job, and someone has to stay with Ray before his test. She still doesn't like it, but Jake reassures her he'll be back soon. In the end, she tells him to be careful. He keeps training until he's out of breath, but he's still unhappy with his moves. He can't fully control his human body yet. Then he glances back and sees Amy reading a book, which makes his heart start racing. The moment he notices, he smacks himself to get a grip. Then he walks over and tells her they should stop for today, since it's almost time to head back. Amy is so lost in her book that she didn't notice how late it was. As they go down the mountain, Ray asks if people in the village bully her because of him, since everyone calls him cursed for his red hair. Amy tells him what her friends say, then shrugs it off. It's their problem. To her, red hair looks cool, not scary. She calls him special, says his hair doesn't change that, and tells him to just be himself. Those words hit him hard, and he remembers Gary mocking him. saying he should do something he's actually good at. The protagonist smiles, finally understanding. He thanks Amy excitedly and waves goodbye. As soon as he gets home, he rushes to the storage room and turns the puppet back to level 1. This time, he drops low, puts his hands on the floor and holds the sword in his mouth. Moving like that feels natural to him, faster, lighter, and much more agile. Once he spots an opening, he attacks with everything he has, and just like that, he clears level 1. He's thrilled by the win, but instead of stopping, he wants to test himself. Passing level 1 already means he could likely pass the Knight Academy exam, and yet he still switches the puppet to level 2. Early the next morning, Jake gets ready to leave for the mission. Ray, just awake, sees him and asks where he's going. Jake apologizes and says he'll be away for a while, but promises to return before the test. He tells his son to keep training with the puppet while he's gone, smiling as he says he knows MC can beat it. He is about to tell him about clearing level 1, but the people waiting outside call Jake to leave. On his way out, Jake tells Scarlett to take care and says he'll miss her. Ray just smiles and thinks it's fine. Beating one puppet isn't that big a deal. He decides to save it and really shock Pops when he gets back. As he heads for the mountain, he wonders how Jake will react, and realizes he only found this answer because of Amy's advice. He feels thankful and oddly happy, then catches himself becoming more like a human. The protagonist reminds himself humans are awful, but his parents and Amy are different, so he won't take revenge on them. As he keeps climbing the mountain, he starts wondering why Amy hasn't come today. Then he realizes he's getting way too impatient waiting for her. He acts like he doesn't care and tells himself no one can interrupt training now. He's a mighty red dragon, he can't let human feelings eat away at him. Later, Ray has apparently fallen asleep and is snoring when he suddenly jolts awake. He realizes it's late and knows he'll get scolded if he doesn't hurry home. As he runs down the mountain, he remembers he still hasn't thanked Amy, and decides he'll do it tomorrow. By the time he reaches the village, it's already dark, and he sees a crowd gathered, talking about searching to the west. It turns out Amy and Gary's father is questioning the blacksmith, who says the 4 kids came by that morning to buy weapons. He overheard the blonde boy say they were heading to the forest to hunt magic beasts. Amy and Gary's parents are terrified, scared they might lose their children. Then Bob and Kale's mother grabs the blacksmith and blames him for letting them go alone. Panicking, he says he didn't know they really meant to enter the forest. After that, the blonde kid's father orders him to call the guards so they can search together, since the forest at night is too dangerous. As the old man hurries off, Ray keeps walking, and thinks about Gary's missing group. At first he figures it's karma. Maybe magic beasts already killed them, which would save him trouble. Then he remembers Amy. He tries not to think about her, reminding himself he doesn't want revenge on her since she treated him well, even if her brother is a fool. Around him, people gather torches and supplies for the search, while he starts to walk away, thinking how short human lives are anyway. But Amy's face flashes through his mind. He stops, confused by the feeling making him hesitate. Then he turns back, deciding Amy did nothing wrong, and he still hasn't even thanked her for helping him beat the puppet. The scene shifts to the forest, where 2 magic beasts are badly beaten. Nearby, Kay and Bob lie unconscious on the ground. Gary stands in front of Amy, trying to shield her while she cries in fear. He tells her not to move and raises his sword to face the beast. Ray rushes into the forest, catches the scent of blood, and soon finds a dead young demonic wolf. He checks the fresh sword wound in its stomach, and realizes the kids must be close. But the tracks and marks are so mixed up that he can't tell which way to go. As he's trying to decide, he hears a scream. Amy! Back at the fight, an adult demonic wolf slams Gary into a tree and sends him crashing down. The wolf then moves in on Amy. She covers her head, shuts her eyes, and prays someone will save her. Then she hears metal strike and opens her eyes to see Ray battling the wolf, driving his sword into its mouth. He quickly checks if Amy is okay, but Gary and the others are in bad shape. Then Amy warns MC to watch out. Too late. The wolf claws his arm and she screams his name in terror, but he tells her he's fine and won't die that easily. Ray tries to draw the wolf away from Amy and leaps onto a tree branch, but the beast bites the branch and he drops right off. Worried, he realizes this body is too weak to keep up with an adult wolf. He struggles badly and sees his speed means nothing here. Back then, a demonic wolf was easy for him. Now he can't even hurt it properly. He snarls that these humans are his, and the wolf can't touch them. Knowing he can't last much longer, Ray prepares one final move and targets its weak spot. He grips the sword in his mouth and throws all his strength into a strike, injuring the wolf's eye. Even then, he's frustrated by how little damage he did. He remembers how, in the past, one blow would have ripped it apart, but now he needs a human sword just to survive. The wolf charges again, and this time he stays calm, waiting for an opening. Then he swings and cuts off one of its legs, sending it crashing down. The moment Ray looks toward Amy, the wolf attacks out of nowhere, but he barely avoids it. With the sword in his mouth again, he puts everything into one last strike and finally kills the wolf. After that, he drops to the ground. Right before he blacks out, a screen appears, saying he unlocked a new ability and got an intermediate-grade beast crystal. Covered in wounds, he wonders what this useless message even means and looks at the unconscious siblings nearby. He knows he has to move them before their blood draws more beasts, so he staggers over in pain. He lifts Gary onto his shoulder and carries Amy in his arms. Gary briefly sees the red-haired boy saving him, then passes out again. Ray figures saving 2 people is all he can manage, so he leaves Bob and Kale behind, thinking he's done all he can, then stumbles out of the forest. The villagers are already searching with torches and weapons when they see him emerge. They call the parents over, and someone recognizes him as the protagonist from Talon's family. Bleeding badly, he asks them to help Gary and Amy and says they may need healing before collapsing. Even then, the villagers start whispering, wondering why the kids entered a forest full of magic beasts at night. Then a mother rushes over and panics when she learns Bob and Kale are missing. She looks around wildly, then at Gary and Amy, and their father tells her only those 2 made it out. She tries to run into the forest, but the villagers stop her, saying she can't go in alone. Calling them cowards, she pushes forward anyway. But the moment she sees the glowing eyes of magic beasts in the dark, she turns and runs back. When the villagers point that out, the shaken woman insists she isn't scared. Furious, she grabs Ray by the collar and demands to know where Bob and Kale are. She blames him, claiming he tricked them into the forest even though they're good kids. Certain he lured them in, she slaps him and calls his red hair a bad omen, a sign of disaster. Hearing that, the others start whispering too, deciding MC must be guilty, since he's the one who came back out. They all turn on him, demanding answers about where he took their children. The woman keeps hitting him, screaming about why he saved Gary and Amy, but not her kids. With barely any strength left, Ray says her children are still in the forest. Calling him heartless, she throws him down and cries that they're just children, so how could he leave them there to die? Then she begs the others to go with her, but they refuse with weak excuses about their own kids at home. Lying there in pain, he wonders if they forgot he's a child too, or if they never saw him as human because of his red hair. The woman snatches a torch from one of the villagers, walks toward Ray and says this red-haired monster should die. Watching them, the protagonist thinks these people are worse than any beast. They're the real monsters. As she raises the torch to kill him, his life flashes by. He gives a faint smile, thinking it's a pathetic way for a red dragon to die. Then she swings the torch at him, but someone jumps in front of Ray. It's Gary, blocking the attack with his gear. The villagers shout that Gary must be crazy, saying the monster even fooled him, and they scream for MC to be killed. Gary glares at them and says they're the crazy ones, trying to murder someone over guesses. He stands in front of him and warns them not to touch his savior. Later, the protagonist has a nightmare about the woman blaming him and hitting him, calling him a star of calamity. The dream shifts to his past, with mages rushing at him and demanding his life. Surrounded by humans who want him dead, he wakes in fear and sees his mother. She's holding his hand, crying in her sleep beside him. Ray thinks humans can be both beautiful and cruel. As soon as he sits up, Scarlet wakes and lights up with joy, almost like she can't believe it. She hugs him and says she thought he'd never wake again. But squeezing him makes MC cry out in pain, so Scarlet quickly lets go and scolds him for being reckless. Then he asks how long he was asleep. She says it's been a full week and tearfully admits she had no idea how to explain this to his father if he didn't wake up. Ray then asks about the people from the forest. Scarlet says the 2 he saved are only lightly hurt and doing fine, but Bob and Kale are still missing, and she thinks the beasts killed them. Then we see Scarlet's flashback. When she reached the forest, she found him beaten by villagers while Gary defended him, explaining that the kids entered the forest on their own, and he saved them. She sees her son lying there unconscious and explodes with rage, her magic flaring up. The villagers try to calm her, claiming Ray led the children into the forest and should take responsibility, saying a mother should understand that pain. As Scarlet lifts her badly injured son, she glares at them so fiercely that even the woman who beat the protagonist starts shaking in fear. Then that same woman breaks down, begging the villagers to save her children, and they murmur in pity about how she'll live without them. While holding MC, Scarlet hears people still gossiping, saying they should have stayed away from that curse. One man warns another to keep his voice down while talking about Talon's child, but the other smirks and pretends he meant the forest. Hearing that, Scarlet carries Ray away. Coming back to the present, Scarlet pats his head and tells him not to blame himself. It's over now. She says Gary told her everything and says he did great. Then she leaves to bring him something to eat. Once she's gone, he starts thinking about the strange screen that appeared in the forest. Wondering if everyone has one, he taps the skill called Blessing of the Dragon's Eye. The moment he does, the skill activates, and he freaks out when he sees his mother's energy status, realizing this is an ability he used to have. He remembers his time as the Red Dragon, when he had many kinds of magic. After failing the aptitude test, he never thought he'd use any of it again. Excited to have power again, Ray guesses he'll unlock his abilities one by one. He also checks the intermediate grade beast crystal, and figures he got it for killing the intermediate demonic wolf. Suddenly, smoke starts filling the room, making him cough. He opens the window and hears villagers yelling that the house is on fire. Then Scarlet rushes in, warns him the flames are spreading, and tells him to get out now. But as the fire keeps climbing, Scarlet shields Ray with magic and stops it. Clinging to his mother's arms, the protagonist uses Dragon Eye to find who set their house on fire. He scans the villagers with it and finds the culprit, Bob and Kale's mother, with fire still burning in her hand. Their whole house is nearly swallowed by flames, and the villagers panic when they realize it's Talon's home, blaming the cursed child again. Scarlet wipes out the fire with her magic, blasting the flames away like a strong gust. When it finally ends, the villagers whisper that the curse struck again, and that if the red-haired boy stays, the whole village will fall into chaos. Hearing that crushes Ray, but his mother cuts in and asks if the fire scared him. Pushing those thoughts aside, he takes her hand and says she looked amazing when she blew the flames away. As they head back, MC keeps thinking about those humans trying to burn their home and them with it. Once he decides they wanted his family dead, his anger turns into a vow for revenge. Later, he leaves to train and Scarlet warns him not to overdo it since his wounds still haven't healed. Then he reaches the forest and pulls out his sword. Using Dragon Eye, he spots beginner magic beasts and gets excited since he can beat them easily. One of them, a monkey-like beast up in a tree, picks an apple and starts eating. Ray locks onto it with Dragon Eye and sneaks up behind it, then brings his sword down on the beast. By the end, he has killed 20 beginner magic beasts. After the hunt, the dragon system appears and tells him he got a beast crystal. Looking at the screen, Ray says it's all luck. He killed 20 beasts and only got 2 crystals. Then he wonders what happens if he absorbs one. As he thinks about it, he notices a small wolf walking around its dead family. He reaches out to pet the pup and tells it to keep fighting from now on. Then a screen appears saying he has a chance to tame the black demonic wolf pup. Not knowing what that means, he clicks yes. He gets excited when it works and the black wolf pup is tamed. But he freaks out after learning the tamed beast goes inside his body. Stunned, he asks the dragon system if there are side effects and whether he can summon it. Annoyed, he warns the little dragon he'll kill it if this fails, and the creepy thing just nods. Right then, he unlocks another skill, but puts it off for later because he has something else to do. He starts searching for the 2 missing kids with Dragon Eye and finds them beyond a hill. When he gets there, he finds a cave-like spot full of corpses and skulls. Then he sees 2 bodies that look like Bob and Kale. The beasts tore out their organs and ate everything, leaving only bones and clothes. Ray takes the clothes as proof of who they were and puts them in a basket. That night, Scarlet keeps telling the protagonist not to train so hard while he's still hurt. He tells her to stop nagging, so she scolds him for talking back and dirtying his clothes. The protagonist still says he'll train again tomorrow. Finally, Scarlet says his dad will be home in a few days, so he can train with him instead. MC lights up, eager to show his father how much he's improved. Then his mother snaps and orders him to get under his blanket and sleep. It scares him enough to realize human instinctive fear is very real. Later, at midnight, Ray opens his eyes, still awake. He heads into the storage room and takes the bucket of clothes from the forest, along with another bucket filled with blood. At the same time, someone knocks on Bob and Kale's house, and their mother comes downstairs, wondering who could be there this late. She opens the door, hoping her sons are back, and calls their names. Instead, she spots something on the ground in front of the house, and she quickly realizes it's Kale's clothes. She picks them up and notices footprints leading away. Thinking they'll lead to her children, she follows them, shouting that she's coming. But the trail takes her deep into the forest. It gets too dark, so she raises her lantern and decides not to go farther. Then she sees Bob's clothes hanging from a tree and runs over, calling both boys' names. As she nears the tree where Ray is hiding, he releases the rope and a bucket of blood dumps all over her. Covered in blood, the woman screams and demands to know who did it. Then Ray jumps down from the tree and shows himself. She instantly says she knew it was the cursed red-haired monster. Furious, she demands her children back and calls him the source of their misfortune. All around them, dangerous magic beasts gather in the forest. He stands calm in the dark, then slowly steps back, leaving the woman trapped among the beasts. With a cold, serious look, he keeps backing away and watches the beasts tear her apart as blood sprays everywhere. The next day, the town is full of rumors that the curse is real, and people decide not to get on the Talon family's bad side. Then Ray appears with his training sword and glares at the gossiping villagers with killing intent. Terrified, they quickly act friendly, wishing him good morning and praising how hard he trains. After he leaves, they breathe again, while the protagonist guesses there are fresh rumors about him, and this time, he likes them. When he gets home, he sees a lot of horses outside the house and gets excited, thinking his father has returned. But the moment he steps inside, he sees his mother crying. Afraid something happened to his father, he rushes over and asks what's wrong. Through tears, Scarlet tells him Jake is sick, but he should recover. Seeing his father in terrible shape, Ray activates Dragon Eye and realizes he's never seen a living being with stats this high, not even back when he was a dragon. Then Jake weakly mutters that the shadows will kill everyone. The mages explain that Jake was hit by a plague of shadows while fighting a shadow beast to protect a villager on a mission. Hearing that, Ray feels like he's heard of something like this before. He wonders when these beasts appeared and what happened to the world after his death, as the Red Dragon. As Scarlet thanks the mages for bringing Jake home, one of them apologizes for failing to protect him. MC checks the dragon system and thinks maybe a spell could help his father. He remembers a high-tier spell he once used that could remove curses and dark magic, but he has no idea how to unlock it again. If killing magic beasts gives skills as rewards, then this spell would probably need a high-rank beast. He knows he's still too weak to face something like that. Then Ray turns to his mother and asks if joining the Avrian Knight Academy will help him grow stronger. Still crying, Scarlet tells him that's where his father studied, so he can become a strong warrior just like him. That fires him up. He decides to pass the exam, enter Avrian Academy, and find a way to save Jake. With a heavy heart, Scarlet hugs him and says she believes he can do it. In the next scene, we move to a church-like place filled with hooded priests. There, the Master Elder tells them a prophecy has been revealed and a huge change is coming to the world. The others ask what kind of change it will be. The prophecy is about Rei, and the Master Elder wonders whether the boy will bring salvation or disaster. No one knows yet. Right after that, the Elder orders the knights to find the boy at once, so if he brings redemption they can guide him, but if he brings calamity, they must kill him. Next comes the exam day at Avery Knight Academy, with everyone lined up and excited to see the knights arrive. As they show up, the crowd cheers, especially when they spot the charming knight Delbert. People whisper that he's exactly like the rumors said. The girls go wild over how handsome he is, since they only get to see the knights once a year on exam day. With the cheers still going, the knights reach the testing area, and Winford introduces himself as a knight of Avery Academy, and welcomes the kids. He also introduces Sir Delbert and Sir Bernardo. Then Winford says they will be the exam proctors, and makes it clear that anyone wanting in must show their best. Once the sword puppet is set in place, Winford tells the candidates to come up one by one. The first boy steps forward, looks down on the wooden puppet and charges in. Sure brute force is enough. His parents cheer him on, but the second he attacks, the puppet knocks him away, and he fails in less than a second. The parents who were cheering moments ago go completely silent, too shocked to react. As the next kid is called, Ray thinks about what Jake told him, how the puppet works, and that he only needs to beat the level 1 wooden puppet. He studies it for a second. It stands still, but its blocks and counterattacks are as fast as an adult's. His thoughts break when he hears Delbert and Winford talking nearby, and he realizes his hearing has gotten sharper, probably from absorbing more beast crystals. The knights complain that coming here is a waste of time, but they were ordered to. Delbert says knights should come from noble blood, and can't see why they bother with filthy commoners. Even Winford thinks that's too harsh. Delbert gets even more annoyed when nobody passes after several rounds. Then Gary steps up and clears the test with a grin. When Bernardo announces it, the villagers start saying the boy has talent. Ray feels secondhand embarrassment watching Gary show off, and then it's his turn to step forward. Winford and Delbert both focus on him. They know this is the child they've been discussing. The villagers start whispering that he's the cursed child, that Jake's condition is his fault, and that his blood-red hair makes him a monster who only brings bad luck. They laugh at the idea of him becoming a knight, but he ignores them, pulls back his hood, and walks up. Bernardo tells him to get ready. The test will begin in a minute. Then Delbert walks over and says he doesn't believe in prophecies. In his eyes, if they're real, the red-haired boy should pass no matter what. To test that, he switches the puppet to level 3, and Bernardo immediately objects. The puppet suddenly lunges at Ray with blinding speed. Bernardo and Winford shout for him to move before he gets killed, but in the next instant, the protagonist cuts the puppet's head clean off. The whole place goes dead silent as the wooden head hits the ground, leaving the knights stunned. Bernardo is too shocked to speak, so Winford tells him to announce the result. Bernardo finally congratulates Ray for passing. Scarlet is proud, while Gary can barely believe what he saw. After passing, MC leaves the village with the knights and says goodbye to his unconscious father. He tells him not to worry and promises to find a way to save him. Ray starts to tear up and Scarlet comes over. She holds a pendant and puts it on him, saying it has been passed down through her family and should bring him luck. He tells his mother he's leaving and asks her to take care of herself. Scarlet worries over him and tells him to stay safe, reminding him she will always be there if he needs her. He reassures her and says he's a man now. Then he leaves as Scarlet cries. When he reaches the cart, he's told to sit with the other boy inside. He looks in and sees Gary. They both go quiet, and Ray wonders if they were the only two who passed. The ride starts in complete awkward silence. Eventually, Gary works up the nerve to apologize to the red-haired boy, admitting he was cruel and even hit him. He bows and calls himself an idiot. Ray is surprised, but accepts it, thinking Gary is just a 5-year-old kid. He also points out that Gary saved him before, so they're even now. That only confuses Gary, who says he is the same age as him. He gets nervous and quickly changes the subject, asking about Amy and why she didn't come to the exam. Gary looks confused and says he thought his sister had already told him she was going to the academy. The protagonist is surprised. He didn't even know Amy had magic talent. As they keep traveling to the Knight Academy, one of the knights suddenly yells to stop the cart, and it halts. The boys peek outside and see thick fog, with no idea what's happening. Winford calls out that they are knights from Avery Academy, and orders whoever is there to identify themselves at once. A badly hurt girl stumbles out of the fog, begging for help. She says her name is Anne Woodwork, an adventurer from the Traceless Guild. When Bernardo asks what happened, she collapses into his arms and says her team was attacked by shadow beasts. Bernardo is shocked. They hadn't even seen a single magic beast on the way here. Delbert, still arrogant, says maybe the monsters came because they know how strong the knights are. Winford tells Anne they're heading to Rennie, so if it's on her route, they can take her. She gratefully agrees. Gary asks why they're going to Rennie instead of the academy. Delbert hears him and snaps that sending kids straight to the front line would be stupid. Both boys are confused by what he means. Delbert explains that Avery Knight Academy sits on the border, so it could be attacked anytime. Winfred adds that they first have to train in Rennie for 10 years and learn the basics before going there. Hearing 10 years leaves Ray speechless. For a dragon, that's nothing, but not for a human. He wonders if his dad can hold on that long. Gary is also shaken. Anne was the only survivor, and Ray's father was attacked by shadow beasts too. Even the knights were rattled. So what happens if they run into them again? Then a cracking sound makes Ray tense up. Winfred warns everyone to get ready. Something huge is coming. It's the Drop Bear King, now turned into a shadow beast too. All three knights prepare to fight as the giant monster charges in. It goes straight for Bernardo, and he can't dodge in time, but Ray jumps in and kills the beast, saving him. Bernardo immediately tells the kids to protect themselves, while Winfred notices the Drop Bear King isn't moving and gets uneasy, thinking it's waiting for something. At the same time, Gary struggles against the shadow beasts and gets scratched by one of them. Ray saves him by slashing the creature across the back and warns him to be careful. These drop bears are much stronger than demonic beasts. Then the Drop Bear King roars, the force blasts one knight away, and everyone else struggles to stay on their feet. Seeing that, Gary wonders what that thing even is, but Ray already knows it's far too strong for them to fight head-on. One knight points out that the Drop Bear King is staying in one spot instead of attacking. Then the giant beast points at Winfred and speaks, saying they'll never defeat the shadows, and the shadows will take over the whole continent. While the other knights fight the smaller beasts, they're stunned to hear a monster talking. The shadow beast adds that he is doomed to fail, and everyone around him is destined to die. Ray is stunned, and so are the knights, who take it as a threat. Then the giant shadow beast growls and leaps away. Once it's gone, Winfred says they should be thankful it chose not to fight, because none of them would have made it out whole. As Ray gets a crystal through his dragon system, he keeps thinking about the beast, feeling like it was talking to him. Winfred then praises Ray and Gary for how they handled the attack and says they'll make fine knights. Ray asks if beasts normally talk like that. Winfred says shadow beasts have never shown up on the border before, and this is the first talking monster he's ever seen. Looking at the red-haired boy's calm face, Winfred thinks no normal child his age would react like this. Meanwhile, Delbert keeps staring at Ray with clear disgust. Later, they reach Rennie Town on horseback and are met by a troop of guards. There are far more guards than usual, so Winfred asks why security is so tight. As Anne thanks the knights for escorting her, a guard tells him the Allure Kingdom has issued an Amber Alert, and every town and city is under heavy watch. Winfred realizes things must be serious if the kingdom declared an Amber Alert. The continent is close to crisis. Then he looks at Ray and wonders if he is the child of prophecy meant to save them all. Meanwhile, Ray is with Gary, thinking about his father and promising himself he'll become a knight. He tells himself this is only the start, and Pops just has to wait until he makes it. 10 years later, the story returns to Rennie Town. At the academy, a teacher asks what power knights use since most of them can't use magic. Gary raises his hand. He answers that knights use chi. With training, it boosts their bodies and senses, and some can even push past normal human limits for a short time. The teacher praises him, then asks why chi can only be trained after age 15, calling on Ray. But when Gary looks over, Ray's seat is empty. Since Ray skipped class again, Gary awkwardly says he went to the restroom. The teacher moves on and calls on Sylvia. Sylvia explains that cry puts huge stress on the body, since a person's organs finish developing after 15, starting then lowers the damage. The teacher tells everyone to remember that while Sylvia keeps staring at Ray's empty seat. Then, we cut to the black demonic wolf. Ray tamed years ago. The wolf battles a magic boar and cuts it down. Ray gets a beast crystal from the kill. He absorbs the beginner rank crystal's power. Then he pats the black wolf for doing well. Figuring he's hunted enough for one day, Ray decides to head back before someone blows up at him for ditching class. Just as he's about to return, Winfred rides up from behind. Winfred says it is a surprise seeing him out here and praises the beast he killed. Then wonders how Ray keeps getting past the tight guard. As they walk, Winfred says Ray has gotten much taller. Ray jokes that Winfred hasn't changed at all in 10 years, and asks his age, but Winfred says that's a secret. Then he mentions hearing Ray slips out of class to hunt beasts. He adds that Ray seems to have caught quite a lot. Ray says that's thanks to the Amber Alert being lifted, which made sneaking out easier. Ray says he'd rather move around out here than sit in class. Winfred warns him not to push his luck, because the outer guards would not go easy on him. Then Winfred remembers something and says he stopped by Ray's house. He tells Ray that Jake's condition hasn't gotten worse because his mother is taking good care of him. Passing along her message, he says Ray shouldn't worry too much about his father. Ray quietly thanks him. Still, he thinks about how hard he trained over the last 10 years. Even after all that, he still hasn't unlocked any new abilities, and has no idea how to help his father. Seeing his mood drop, Winfred pats his shoulder and pulls him in close, leaving Ray flustered. As they head back, Winfred tells him to cheer up. They leave for Avrian Academy tomorrow, and he's excited to see the other kids there. Later, at Rennie Town's entrance, Alan is yelling at a guard for letting his student leave. The guard argues that after the Amber Alert ended, he had no reason to stop him. Then Winfred and Ray arrive and see Alan grabbing the guard by the collar, saying the red-haired boy is special and they need to know where he is at all times. Winfred calls out to him. Alan turns and spots Ray standing beside the knight. That is the last straw. Alan explodes. reminding Ray he was told not to leave his sight, and asking how many times he skipped out this month. Winford watches from behind, thinking Ray had this coming. After getting smacked on the head, Ray mutters that the alert ended a month ago, so he should be able to do what he wants and that Alan is way too stiff. Ray ducks behind Winford while Alan keeps after him. Ray says he's leaving soon anyway, so Alan will be free. Alan snaps back that as long as Ray is his student, he doesn't get to skip class, while Winford tries to calm them down. After that, everyone is called to Rennie Town Square for an emergency meeting. When Ray shows up with a bump on his head, Gary asks if he got caught again. Ray says he just got unlucky. Sylvia sneaks a look at him and starts blushing. Once all the students gather, a squire named Lancey tells them he'll escort them to the Avrian Night Academy, and the trip will take about 7 days. With a serious look, Lancey warns them that if they want to stay out of trouble, they must follow his orders. Later, a guard asks Winford if the route has been chosen. Winford says they'll go through the swamp. The guard immediately panics, saying it's too harsh for children. Winford looks at the students and says future knights are supposed to face hardship and they aren't the only ones being tested. The next morning, the students leave Rennie Town in carriages and start their trip to the Avrian Night Academy. While Ray snores away, Kyle wonders why they didn't just use teleporters, since that would get them there right away. Another boy agrees it would have saved them the trouble. Dan calls Kyle an idiot and says the academy doesn't have a teleporter. Kyle asks if Avrian is like Roland Academy and just can't afford one. Then a voice cuts in saying someone clearly wasn't paying attention in class. It's Sylvia. She explains that Avrian Academy sits right on the border, so it has to defend against both invaders and shadow beasts. If a teleporter were there and the defenses fell, enemies could use it to go wherever they wanted. The others are surprised by that. Sylvia starts turning red as she looks at Ray, but when Gary notices, she quickly looks away while Ray keeps sleeping on his shoulder. Later, they reach some castle ruins by the swamp and are told to set up camp since it's already getting late. As they work, Gary tells Ray the silver-haired girl has been staring at him. Ray doesn't get why, so Gary tells him to look behind if he doesn't believe it. The two of them turn and sneak a glance. Sylvia is already peeking at her crush, but she gets caught and panics, fumbling with her camp. Since Gary was right, Ray guesses it's because of his red hair. Gary points out there are plenty of redheads here, like Kyle, Ian, and the twins Sloth and Badger. Then Gary grins and asks if Ray is really going to ignore a girl that pretty. Ray doesn't seem interested at all. Meanwhile, Dan sneaks behind the castle ruins to meet his friend Monk. The two are hit by a horrible smell and quickly figure out where it's coming from. Staring at the swamp, Dan says he can't even see the end of it. As they look around, Lancey suddenly appears behind them and dryly tells them it's a swamp. The boys jump, and Lancey warns that if they don't want sharp worms in that swamp biting their legs off, they better set up their tents and go to sleep. Night falls. Ray slips out of the ruins without the guards noticing. Since he already scoped the area out during dinner, he figures he can leave without trouble. But just as he starts to go, someone grabs his hand. It's Sylvia, asking where he's going this late. Ray plainly says he's off to hunt magical beasts. Sylvia is shocked and warns him this isn't near Rennie anymore. He could run into an intermediate rank beast and the knights might not reach him in time. Ray pulls his hand free and says he'll be fine. An intermediate rank beast isn't a problem for him. Sylvia looks hurt as he walks off to hunt. The next morning, the knights yank the curtains open and wake everyone up, warning that the last person up will be punished. Gary jolts awake and nearly jumps out of his skin when he sees Ray lying there with his red eyes wide open. He asks if Ray stayed up all night. Ray, who had only just laid down after hunting all night, calmly says he slept fine, he's not stupid. Gary quickly figures out the truth and rushes outside so he won't get punished. Ray stays behind, smiling at his dragon system. He figures that if he keeps hunting like this, he'll max out beginner beast crystals before they reach Avrian Night Academy. After that, he can start absorbing intermediate ones. Later, the group continues toward the academy, with the knights leading the carriages. As they move through a creepy forest, Winford suddenly stops after sensing something ahead. He gives Lancey a look and the knights pull back. The students are about to face this test on their own. Then things burst from the ground, rocking the carriages. Gary notes how quiet it had been outside, while Ray is still half asleep. Then a horse screams as something attacks it. Sharp worms erupt from the earth and slam into the carriage, terrifying several students. Gary and Ray react at once, drawing their swords and cutting into the worms. One worm crawls forward to strike a girl, but Gary jumps in front of her and slices it apart. The sight of worm blood pouring everywhere leaves some students shaking. Gary warns that sharp worms travel in swarms, so more are coming. He tells everyone to stay alert and get off the carts as others move in to help. He orders them to fight in the open and form groups of 3, standing back to back so there are no gaps. Kyle, meanwhile, looks fired up to kill every worm he can. Ray thinks they're getting a little too into it and activates his dragon eye. After checking the field, he sees the sharp worms are only beginner rank beasts, so he has nothing to worry about. Then he spots the 6 knights on top of a cliff, watching from above. As Ray starts drifting back toward the carriage to nap, Dan catches him and tells him not to break formation. With a huge yawn, Ray says these are just beginner rank monsters, so they don't need him. And with him out, the numbers work out better anyway. From the cliff, the knights assume Ray is scared and say he'll probably end up with a red belt. Another points out that Gary is doing very well. They note that he attacks without hesitation, kills in one swing and controls his body well without wasting movement. They expect Gary to earn a white belt. Winfred then points to Sylvia, saying she doesn't attack first but notices everything. Another knight praises her perfect stance. Sylvia neatly dodges a sharp worm and cuts it down with her sword. Winfred says she's steady, and once she sees an opening, the fight is over. Lancey is impressed that she even kept her clothes spotless. Then the ground suddenly explodes and a giant sharp bug rises out. The students panic, thinking the worms merged into one huge monster. Shaking with fear, one kid stumbles to the ground as the giant worm leans in. Just before it can strike, Ian jumps in front of him and tears off the worm's tentacles with brute strength. Fueled by anger, Ian keeps ripping into it, shouting that no one gets to hurt his comrades. The twins, Sloth and Badger, rush into and carve through the giant worm like pros. Kyle, still counting his kills, drives his sword through it and proudly says that makes 45. Watching from above, the knights are surprised they don't need to step in. The red-haired kids, aside from Ray, have nearly finished the monster on their own. Once it's over, Ian checks if his teammate is okay, and everyone is relieved the worms are finally dead. Winfred notes that Ian isn't just strong, he also looks after his team, making him a real gem. Then there's Ray, asleep on the carriage like none of this matters. Afterward, everyone climbs back into the carriage. Gary asks Ray why he didn't help, and warns that this place is dangerous. Stretching, Ray says he was too sleepy, and the knights were watching anyway. Gary can only call him a lone wolf. Winfred, still watching, wonders which one is the child of prophecy. As the trip continues, Kyle brags about killing the monsters, and Dan praises him. They start talking like they'll be real knights before long, and Dan says if they're lucky, they might even earn a white belt. Gary, confused, asks what a white belt even is. Dan explains that knights have different ranks, and the ones escorting them now are white tassel protectors, high-ranking knights. He says those knights once earned white belts, proving their skill through tests and trials. There are also green and black belts for other levels, while red is the lowest rank. That wakes Ray right up when Dan adds that red belts go to students who do poorly on the tests. He goes on to say white belts get personal instructors, rewards, and better resources. Red belts get basic training and are mostly ignored. Since the academy gives up on them, they can pretty much go wherever they want. Hearing that, Ray is thrilled. If he gets a red belt, he'll have all the freedom he needs to hunt magic beasts and gain stronger crystals and abilities fast. Excited, he clenches his fist and decides he has to do his best to earn that red belt. Soon after, they finally arrive at Avarian Knight Academy. The place leaves the students stunned. Gary thinks it's awesome, and Ray is speechless at how massive it is. Avarian Knight Academy is basically a giant castle with enormous gates. The students can only stare. It's exactly how they imagined it. They whisper that the academy feels like a whole city just for knights. They're even more amazed to learn it runs on mana crystals instead of torches. Gary says this place feels like a completely different world from the village he grew up in. Lancey then tells Gary and Kyle to stay close if they don't want to get lost, promising they'll have time to explore later. Lancey the squire starts giving them a tour, leading them through the armory. At the library, he tells them to keep quiet. Some of the girls are more focused on how handsome Sir Lancey is. Dan asks if the librarians are knights too, and Lancey explains that every graduate must serve the city for 2 years before choosing to stay or leave. Before the dorms, Lancey brings them to one last stop that looks almost like a cemetery. He reveals it holds the remains of knights who fought or died for the Allure Kingdom. He says he brought them here to remind them that war never truly ended, and a knight's first duty is to protect home. The students answer together that they will fight to protect their home. But Ray starts trembling with anger, thinking about how humans use dragon bodies to make armor and weapons. Then Sylvia raises her hand and asks about the statues and who they were based on. Lancey says they honor the founders of Avarian Knight Academy, the legendary Dragon Knights. The students immediately start buzzing with questions. Lancey cuts it short, saying they'll learn all about them in academy history. As they head for the dorms, Ray is still upset enough for Gary to notice. Using his dragon eye, Ray senses a tomb beneath the graveyard and something down there is alive. On the way to the dorms, Gary wonders who their roommates will be and hopes they're easygoing. Ray barely hears him, too busy thinking about that strange presence in the tomb. It didn't feel like a magical beast at all. Gary finally asks if he heard a word he said. Ray replies that he was talking about roommates, and just then they reach their dorm. They find out they're assigned to the same room and start wondering who else will join them. Then Sivol walks up, and to their surprise, she's apparently sharing the dorm with them. Gary is thrown off and Sivol turns pink the moment she sees Ray. She looks clearly uncomfortable. Gary tells her it's probably normal, since the academy treats everyone the same, no matter their gender. He adds that she should look on the bright side. They're nice guys. But Sivlia is so nervous, she slaps Gary. He drops to the floor, then stomps off, making it clear she refuses to share a room with boys. As Gary lays there in pain, 2 others watch the whole thing. Ray brushes it off as a spoiled girl throwing a tantrum. Those 2 are their other roommates, Monk and Ian, and Gary quickly introduces himself and Ray. Noticing Ian's red hair, Ray figures he must be from the same place as him. Gary checks the dorm list and sees 2 more roommates are still coming, Dan and Marsha Woodwork. Meanwhile, Sylvia slowly heads back upstairs toward the boys' room. She glares at them and warns them not to come in because she's changing. Forced out into the hall, Gary says he knew the school wouldn't let her switch rooms. Right then Dan shows up and asks why they're all standing outside. Gary says they were waiting for him because there's a huge cockroach inside, and they need someone to handle it. Hearing that, Dan puffs up and says future knights shouldn't fear a bug. Then he throws the door open, while the others struggle not to laugh. They just played a dirty trick on their new roommate. The scene then shifts to dinner, where everyone is busy eating. Still annoyed from the prank, Dan asks if they had fun, since now Sivlia might kill him in his sleep. With a slap mark still on his face, Gary jokes that plenty of people would be jealous just to get her attention. The second Dan says more about her, Sivlia overhears and gets mad. Dan and Gary quickly deny talking about her at all. Meanwhile, Ray keeps eating like none of this matters. Sivlia mutters that she can't believe they're eating at a time like this when the test is so close. Since Ray is focused only on food, Gary guesses she means the belt test, and asks what that has to do with eating. Ray just says it's free food, and Sivlia looks completely done with them. Nearby, some older students sneer at MC and Gary, mocking them as country kids stuffing their faces like they've never had a decent meal. With their mouths still full, the two turn and stare at the seniors while the mocking continues. Then the seniors move to Ian and start picking on him too, mocking his size and saying his chair might break. They call him a country brute, and Ian looks close to tears. Then they go further, saying they hate seeing redheads from Rennie. Hearing that, Kyle stops eating, while Sloth calmly drinks his tea and grips his twin brother's hand before he can pull a knife. The seniors keep ranting about red hair, like it's some curse, and tell them to stay away. Monk finally stands up and tells them they've gone too far. Ian tries to stop him, but the seniors tell Monk to mind his own business. They mock him too, saying he'll be lucky to get a red belt, and threaten to beat him if he keeps talking. Then they turn back to Ian, praise him for knowing his place, and tell him to take the long way around whenever he sees them. The moment he says that, someone throws food at him. The senior snaps and demands that whoever did it show himself. Ray steps up. He slams the guy's face onto the table, twists his arm, and pins him there. Then he asks who he was threatening, and the idiot still spits out that it was the disgusting red-haired freak. The fight at the table draws the knight's attention, and students start shouting that someone's gone crazy. He keeps pounding the loudmouth until Ian stops him and says they weren't hurt. Gary urges him to calm down before the knights step in, and Sylvia warns him the coming test could ruin his first impression. But he doesn't let go and twists the senior's arm even harder. Other students call for a knight and accuse the red-haired boy of attacking another student. Then Sir Lancey arrives and orders Ray to let him go. The senior cries for help, but the protagonist only squeezes harder. Lancey repeats the order, telling MC to stop. Instead, he tells Ian this is how he was raised. When someone tries to use you or treat you like dirt, you make sure they pay for it. A crack follows. Ray has broken the guy's arm and the room goes silent. Only then does he let go, pointing at the senior and telling Ian that people learn only after they're taught a lesson. Lancey glares and demands to know why he ignored a direct order. With a smug smile, he apologizes and says he figured his teacher of all people would understand what it's like to hear only what he wants. Without even blinking, the protagonist grabs Gary's hand and tells him to keep eating. They shouldn't let trash ruin their appetite. Lancey is furious, but whispers spread through the hall. People point out the seniors started it and say they had it coming after bullying others for so long. After that, the three commanders arrive and the students assume the test is about to begin. Winford orders everyone to be silent and welcomes the heads of the academy, the 6 elders. The 6 elders enter in cloaks and masks. Seeing them, the students get nervous, since it's rare for all 6 to watch a test. As Ray watches the elders approach, he wonders if they're as strong as the humans who once slaughtered him and the other dragons. He snaps out of it as Winford explains that the 6 elders will witness the test for the new knight recruits, and the results will decide what color belt each student gets. He adds that a poor result means a red belt, basically a failure. Still, Winford smiles and tells them not to lose heart. Even a red belt doesn't decide their whole future, and every one of them showed talent when they were chosen at age 5. He encourages them to keep going, because training will sharpen the gifts they already have. Ray looks at Winford and thinks he's as kind and hopeful as ever. That only makes him more uneasy, wondering how Winford will react if he gets a red belt. When Winford finishes speaking, he hands things over to Lancey. Lancey says he'll handle the rest, then shoots Ray a deadly glare. Lancey announces that the trial has 5 stages, each testing a different part of a knight's skill: Stone of Power, Blazing Inferno, Undetected Passage, Ion Precision, and Will of Truth. The first stage is the Stone of Power. Lancey explains that they simply have to push a huge stone to the goal line to clear the stage. Each student gets 2 tries. If they fail once, they can use magic gloves on the second attempt to boost their strength, but that will lower their evaluation. Gary whispers that this looks easy, and Ray agrees it should be no problem for him. But Ray mutters that someone clearly doesn't want him to pass, leaving Gary confused. Right before the test starts, Lancey announces that as proctor, he is rejecting Ray Talon's participation. Ray stays calm and folds his arms. Gary and Sylvia protest right away, asking how this could be fair. Lancey says it's a lesson for all future knights. They must obey their superiors. If anyone disagrees, they can report him, and if his superiors overrule him, he'll accept it. Then he calls the first student forward. Gary whispers that Ray really got on Lancey's bad side, and Sylvia tells him to report this, because Lancey has no right to treat him that way. But Ray shrugs it off and says this actually makes things easier. He tells them to take the test first, and he'll join them in the next stage. To him, that means he's basically guaranteed a red belt. Soon, both Gary and Sylvia pass. Then Ian grabs the rock and lifts it instead of pushing it, leaving everyone stunned. Gary comes back drenched in sweat, but happy he made it. MC congratulates him and warns that the second stage may be rough, so he should get ready. The blonde boy looks confused, but Ray points out the second stage proctor, who seems to be from Roland Academy. Seeing that, Gary panics and asks how they're supposed to handle this when they've never learned magic. He says the battlefield won't care what they haven't learned, so they'll probably just have to endure it somehow. He adds that people with strong bodies often have weaker magic resistance, so these 5 tests are likely meant to measure both strengths and weak points, then help shape their training. Gary says that makes sense, and jokes that maybe he's an all-around genius, but the protagonist clearly doesn't buy it. Then the second stage, Blazing Inferno, begins. The mage tests Gary with magic on his forehead, and he lasts 57 seconds. Ray says that's pretty good though. Gary thinks he did badly. Dan cheers him up, explaining that in the mage's illusion, an hour inside is only a minute outside, so he actually did well. Next is Sylvia, and when the mage starts her test, she stays calm, telling herself it's only an illusion, so there's nothing to fear. When the illusion of fire appears, she holds on for 5 whole minutes, and the others start talking about how amazing she is. While everyone is calling Sylvia goddess, the proctor tells her she's proven herself. After that, Ray is called up and Sylvia wishes him luck. He figures lasting 20 seconds would be enough, or maybe he should just give up right away. Then gets ready, but as the proctor casts the illusion, a red dragon suddenly appears before him and breathes fire. Ray is thrown off, wondering what's happening, and the red dragon looks like his past self. Then the proctor is suddenly lifted into the air by some force, shocking everyone. The mage panics and cries out that the boy is cursed by the red dragon. Right away, whispers spread through the crowd that the red-haired boy is bad news, that he's cursed. Seeing this, Winford rushes over to the old mage, who looks unconscious. MC stands nearby and asks if he's okay, but Winford says he's just exhausted and tells him to rest. Winford finds it strange that the old mage's mana is completely drained. It doesn't add up. In the next scene, the elders look into the incident. Winford says it was just mana disorder from overusing mana, and the mage should recover with rest. The elders aren't convinced. They question how a mage from the famous Roland Magic Academy could be drained by a test like this, while others wonder if he simply used too much mana on the students. Winford tells them the mage is resting, and says he'll keep investigating. He also suggests replacing him for the remaining tests, and the elder agrees, but as Winford leaves, one masked elder calls over an armored guard knight and whispers something to him, and the guard says he'll handle it at once. Then the elder stares at Ray Talon from a distance, as he heads back to his friends. After the incident, he asks about mana disorder. Sylvia explains that it happens when a mage has no mana left, but forces out another spell anyway, causing it to backfire on their body. He understands, while Gary jokes that his friend is just unlucky, and says geniuses always have it rough. As the two laugh, Sylvia stays doubtful. She thinks it's weird that a mage from Roland Magic Academy would make such a simple mistake, and she keeps thinking about the curse he mentioned. Then they hear a noise and the ground starts shaking. Everyone thinks it's an earthquake, but trees suddenly start appearing everywhere, making it clear this is magic. Soon the whole testing area is filled with trees. Gary has no idea what's happening, and Sylvia says someone is casting a spell. Then a proctor appears and announces that the third stage is starting now. While everyone is still caught off guard, he tells the students to follow him and copy his movements as closely as they can. Just like that, the third stage begins. Gary can't believe the test is already underway. The proctor takes off at impressive speed, and the students chase after him. Poor Dan, still in disbelief, yells about how fast everyone is. Gary tells Ray he won't lose today, and Sylvia runs after them, leaving Dan behind because nobody is waiting for him. The instructor starts thinking he may be pushing the kids too hard and should slow down, but when he looks back, he's shocked to see them catching up. He's impressed. Gary even calls out to Monk that they're about to catch him, since he'd been in front the whole time. Now the proctor realizes he underestimated them. There's no reason to go easy, so he challenges them to catch him if they can. As they keep chasing him, Ray admits he's bad at this because he used to move on all 4 limbs. Then he spots arrows flying toward them and warns everyone. Another proctor is the one shooting. The female proctor says the third stage proctor didn't need to hold back so much, since there are so many kids, but he says they're better than she thinks. She then tells the students to keep following or they'll lose him, and reminds them to grab a bow. Everyone wonders about the bow, then realizes the fourth stage has started too. Gary guesses it's an accuracy test. Sylvia agrees, and they keep moving. The fourth stage proctor announces that targets are set up deeper in the forest. She says they'll pass by hitting 3 targets while dealing with her interference. With that, the fourth stage, Ion Precision, begins. Ray thinks he's fine getting a red belt, but he still doesn't want to finish last, so he decides to show a little off and activates his Dragon Eye. The moment he does, a magic arrow shoots toward Gary, and the protagonist instantly shoves his friend out of the way. He realizes he can't dodge it in time, but another arrow smashes into the incoming one. Ray feels the danger right away and thinks that shot was far too strong for a normal test. It nearly hit them. Then their classmate Marsh saves them and asks if they're okay. Gary thanks her and says she's amazing. Marsh says she's just glad she was nearby, because otherwise she doesn't know if she could have stopped it. Right after that, MC senses more arrows and warns everyone to be careful. They all dodge. Ray quickly understands something is wrong. Those arrows were wrapped in cheat and completely different from the Proctor's shots. Someone is trying to kill them, or maybe just him. Another arrow suddenly flies at the students, but he tracks it and fires his own to stop it. At the same time, the fourth stage Proctor also senses the danger. Just as the protagonist is about to release his arrow, his bow shatters, stunning the others. Realizing something is seriously off, the Proctor goes after the imposter and fires a full attack, but she's shocked by the speed. The imposter dodges everything without leaving a trace. She wonders who would target the students and knocks the arrow out of the tree. Then she tells the students her arrow simply went off course and orders them to continue the test. Ray knows she didn't fire that shot, she's just trying to calm them down. As the others keep testing, he wonders if someone dangerous slipped into the venue. When they finish, they find Monk waiting with the third stage Proctor. Gary and MC tell Sylvia what happened and she's shocked to hear it. She says they should report it to the Knights, but Ray thinks they shouldn't. Gary agrees. The Proctor clearly lied earlier. Maybe she was trying to calm everyone, but maybe she was hiding something too. He adds that if someone really is after them, it has to be someone who can get inside the venue, which means the attacker could be a Proctor or even a Knight. That leaves Sylvia deeply worried. When she asks what they'll do now, he says they'll wait and watch, though he's very curious about the bastard who tried to kill them. Meanwhile, the intruder tries to run after tossing away his bow, but a female Proctor catches him and orders him to stop. He freezes. She points an arrow at him and demands to know why he attacked the new students, warning him not to move because she can kill him at any second. The intruder reaches for his sword, but the Proctor warns him not to move or she'll shoot. He glares back at her and they clash right away. Then the story moves to the fifth and last test, Will of Truth, which checks the students' willpower and chi control. Holding up the sword, Delbert says it was made from a Firebird Ultra Beast crystal and bursts into flames when someone grabs it. Even if the students haven't learned chi yet, he says they can still try to guide it with pure focus. He starts calling students up, and the first is Ion, the red-haired boy. Ion steps up nervously and grabs the sword. A huge flame erupts and blasts soot onto his face. Lancey flinches at the sight, then calls the next student. The scene cuts to Elder Gibby talking to the intruder. He's annoyed the man failed and even got caught by a Proctor. As the man apologizes, Gibby says he never expected this problem to be solved so quickly anyway. Then he puts on a mask that can change the user's appearance and mutters that at least they've sent a message. The Pureblood Guild is still around. Back at the test, Gary steps up and controls the flames perfectly as he holds the sword. Then our boy goes up next, and Sylvia asks Gary if Ray is really strong. Gary thinks for a moment, then says Ray is insanely strong. The others doubt it since his first 4 scores were awful. That's when the blonde boy brings up the last time he fought with Ray. He says he won easily, but 10 years ago when an intermediate demonic wolf attacked him, Ray saved him and killed it. The others laugh it off. They were only 5, so they think it was probably just a big wolf, not an intermediate beast. Sylvia starts wondering if Ray really is strong and why he hides it. Then the test begins. Our boy grabs the sword and suddenly the dragon system appears, asking if he wants to absorb the ultra-grade beast crystal. No flames come out at all. The students start whispering that weird stuff always happens with this guy, and they're shocked the sword isn't even glowing anymore. He swings it around, wondering if it broke. Delbert stares in disbelief, and yanks the sword from his hands. When no flames appear, Delbert panics, shouting that the weapon was made from an Ultra Beast crystal and is one of the Allure Kingdom's treasures. He grabs the red-haired boy by the collar and accuses him of doing something to it. Ray, totally confused, asks how he could damage a sword made from Ultra Beast crystal. He adds that Delbert was watching him the whole time, so he couldn't have tried anything anyway. Delbert is furious, but before he can go on, an armored knight cuts in and says there's an urgent report. He whispers in Delbert's ear, and Delbert is stunned by what he hears. Right after that, he announces the tests are over and orders everyone back to their dorms. The students relax, and they're told to come back at dinner to receive their belts. Everyone starts guessing what color they'll get, while Ray hopes for red. But something else catches his attention. He overhears the knights saying the 4th stage Proctor has been found dead. At the crime scene, armored knights tell Winfred that she was already dead when they found her. What shocks them more is that her body is still warm, meaning she was killed not long ago, and Winfred can't believe someone pulled this off. A knight orders the elders to be informed at once. The next scene moves to the elders' meeting room, where the armored knights report the death. They say the Proctor was killed in a single strike, so the killer had to be highly skilled. They also mention something strange. None of the intruder alarms went off. One elder says that makes it sound like an inside job, especially with all the rumors about hidden groups. The elder wonders if it was the Pureblood Guild or the Dark Guild, while another says this is outrageous. A captain of the Green-Belted Knights was killed during an exam, so they need answers. They wait to hear what the head elder thinks, and the head warns them not to let a word of this leave the room. He orders the knight captains to keep investigating and find the killer. By dinner, all the students gather to receive their belts, and everyone is tense. Meanwhile, Gary and Sylvia are talking with a girl named Marcia Woodwork. Sylvia is happy to finally have a female roommate. Hearing her last name, Gary asks if she knows Anne Woodwork, and learns Marcia is her daughter. On the other side, Ray is stuck thinking about the murdered proctor. He's sure this wasn't done by an ordinary person, but by someone high up, maybe even a commander or elder. Gary snaps him out of it and asks if he remembers the adventurer they met on the way to Rennie years ago. He says that woman turned out to be Martha's mother and talks about what a crazy coincidence it is. But the protagonist barely listens, which annoys Gary. He points out that the protagonist has been spacing out a lot lately. Sylvia figures he's still worried about the one who fired the arrow. Gary pinches his cheeks hard, and MC finally says he was thinking about why the sword in the 5th test didn't react to him. He keeps quiet about the proctor's death, knowing that would only make things worse. As Gary keeps pinching him, Sylvia says Ray really has the worst luck. She's about to bring up what happened in the 2nd test when the Knight Commanders arrive. Winfred says it's time to hand out the Knight Belts and tells the students to come up when called. The first name is Gary Blueblood, and as he walks forward, the students whisper that he was the top performer and should get a white belt. Some argue their goddess Sylvia did just as well, and others say both of them will get white. The guesses keep going, but after the final decision, Winfred announces that Gary will receive a black belt. Gary looks disappointed as the whispers spread through the hall. After that, Ian and Sylvia receive white belts, and some students lose it when they see the red-haired guy get a white belt. When Ray Talon is called, everyone is sure he's about to get a red belt. Instead, our boy is given a black belt, leaving everyone stunned, especially him. Dan starts crying because he's the only one who got a red belt. His friend Monk got black, and even the guy who did the worst got black too. Another student tells him whining won't change the results. Meanwhile, our boy can't understand how he got a black belt with such low scores, and he starts wondering if there's some conspiracy behind it. Finally, the Knight Commander explains that from now on, students will train under different knights based on belt color. As Gary wonders what black belts even do, a man who seems to be their instructor is smoking a cigarette while holding the list of his students' names. He looks over the 2 redheads in his group, hopes they don't cause trouble, and calls them the future Dragon Knights. The next day at the training grounds, the students have already returned from their dorms. The black belt group waits for their instructor while Ray naps and Kyle keeps complaining, hoping their teacher is at least normal. As the red-haired guy tries to stay hopeful, their instructor suddenly appears behind them and asks if they were talking about him. Kyle nearly jumps out of his skin. The instructor, a laid-back guy with a cigarette, tells them to follow him. He, Kyle, Gary, and Monk trail behind in awkward silence. Kyle asks if the instructor ever said his name. Since he didn't, Gary tells him to just ask directly. So Kyle does, bluntly asking what they should call him, and our boy is a little shocked by how bold he is. Without turning around, the instructor waves a hand and says they can call him K. Ray thinks the name is weird, and Kyle figures it can't be his real one. As they keep walking, they run into Delbert, who greets him as Sir K, still bitter toward the red-haired boy. Delbert says he feels sorry for the black belt instructor for ending up with 2 redheads. He also mocks the protagonist Talon, saying he must be thrilled to have gotten a black belt. Then he adds that if it were up to him, someone like MC would never have been allowed into the academy. But our boy fires back that it's a shame Delbert doesn't get to make the decisions. That pushes Delbert over the edge. He warns Ray to know his place and says he'll be watching him. As Delbert moves to hit him, Case blocks him with his sword and reminds him that he is now part of the Black Belted Knights. So letting discrimination come between them would only make things worse. Case's sword stops Delbert, but the knight just smirks and says everyone will soon learn the prophecy about the protagonist is wrong. Still annoyed, Delbert tells him good luck and walks off. The students are left confused, whispering about the prophecy and wondering what he meant. Kyle glares after him, then tells the student knights to follow. He leads them to a room inside the castle and says this will be their special training area from now on. When they enter, the chamber is completely dark. A strange wind hits them, making the students flinch and shield their eyes. The place is run down and gloomy. The silence freaks Monk and Kyle out, and they suddenly realize Sir Kay has vanished without them noticing. While the others start panicking, Ray uses his dragon eye and figures Kay is gone. He still can't find him, even with that. Gary asks if MC can see their teacher, but he says no, he's nowhere in sight. Then Kay suddenly appears behind them and grabs both boys, scaring them half to death. With a candle in hand, Kay explains they'll train in total darkness to sharpen their senses. They'll stay here until they can move with the dark and use it like a weapon. That makes Gary uneasy. He says he heard black belts get sent on assassination missions and asks if that's true. Ray can tell that's what's bothering him. Kay takes a drag and says their skills make them better suited for those jobs than the others. Like it or not, Gary has to accept that. Gary, clearly upset, asks why they can't just fight head-on like everyone else. Kay steps closer and tells him they were picked because they have abilities the others don't. He pats Gary on the shoulder and says if he wants a straight fight, he can still have one, so he doesn't need to worry. Then Kay tosses them their black belts and tells them that from today on they can fight however they want. The next day, Ray checks his watch and sees his rank is 300. He figures the watch shows the current rankings. Lying on his bed, he recalls Kay saying the list updates every day after practice. Students in the same grade can challenge each other anytime. If a lower-ranked student wins, they take that spot, and the higher your rank, the more resources you get. Ray then asks Gary how many students are in their grade, and Gary says there are over 300. He realizes that puts him near the bottom of the rankings. Then Dan checks Gary's watch and freaks out when he sees Gary is ranked first, saying everyone had been wondering who'd take the top spot. Dan is thrilled to share a room with the first and third rankers, laughing that he can brag all he wants. Gary gets annoyed at him for flashing everyone's ranks. Nearby, Sylvia, the third-ranked knight, glances over at Dan, acting wild, and says, "Boys are foolish." Then Ian asks Monk why he looks so happy. Monk checks his watch, sees he's 65th, and quietly gets excited. He says it's nothing, but he's clearly proud and ready to keep working. 10 days later, Ray walks through the hall thinking he's close to 100 points for beginner beast crystals, but hunting hasn't given him much. When he reaches his dorm, loud arguing inside snaps him out of it. Monk is heated, saying Gary only climbed the rankings because of his natural talent, while Gary argues that the black belt training is kind of deceptive and useless for him. Monk shoots back that the training isn't useless. Gary just sucks at it. Gary says he doesn't need it to keep his rank anyway. The protagonist walks in confused, and Dan says he's never seen Monk this mad. Dan explains they're fighting over whether black belt training is actually useful, then asks Ray what their training was like. MC thinks the answer is obvious. Gary isn't built for stealth, assassination, or hiding his presence, but Monk is naturally good at it. Still, Gary isn't wrong either. He's better than Monk in the basics, and even if Monk is improving fast, Gary is still stronger overall. Monk yells that Gary can't just dismiss all his hard work. Gary snaps back that he only gave his opinion. Worried, Sylvia jumps between them and asks him to help. The protagonist brushes it off and tells her to handle it herself. Dan loves that idea, and Sylvia quickly tells him to stop making things worse. Then Monk says they should settle it with a rank battle. Gary agrees right away and says they'll see if those special skills really help in a fight. Soon they're at the training grounds, where everyone is buzzing that someone is challenging the #1 ranker. Some students wonder if it's the blonde guy, since they heard the challenger is another high-ranked black belt. Hearing that, Sebastian Delbert's youngest son gets interested, but a silver-haired boy says it's nothing special, just a fight between country kids from Rennie. Meanwhile, Kyle loudly calls for bets, using a wooden box as everyone chooses between top-ranked Gary and Dark Horse Monk. Dan jumps in first, putting 10 silver on Gary. Sylvia immediately yells at him for betting on his own roommates. Then, to her shock, Martha bets on Monk, saying maybe he'll surprise them. Troubled, Sylvia asks Ray if Monk has any chance of winning. By then, the match is starting. Gary and Monk take their wooden swords while Kyle stands in as referee. Kyle eagerly gives the signal to begin. At the same time, MC asks Sylvia if she thinks Gary will win. The fight starts, and the two clash hard right away. Sylvia says Gary is clearly gifted. His technique is great, and he stands above most of them. Still, Monk has worked harder than anyone in special training, so he's probably Gary's biggest rival right now. Monk swings hard, and smoke bursts out around them. He thinks his training paid off, but when the smoke clears, Gary has blocked it. As their swords grind together, Gary tells Monk to give up because he can't win. Ray admits Monk has improved a lot, enough that Gary has to take him seriously. Even so, he still thinks Gary will win. He yawns, nearly nodding off, while Sylvia says Monk can't close every gap in such a short time. Martha, who bet on Monk, watches nervously as he starts losing the fight. Around the training ground, most people are already expecting Gary to win, and that's what happens. Gary lands one final strike and shatters Monk's wooden sword. Monk stares in disbelief, asking how this happened. Then he starts to break down and Gary apologizes, saying that's just how it is. But Monk can't accept it. He grabs the broken sword, now sharp at the edge, and rushes Gary from behind. Still out of control, he charges with the jagged blade and yells that it's not over yet. Seeing Monk about to stab Gary in the back, Sylvia screams a warning, and Martha yells for Monk to stop. The broken blade is only a moment from Gary's neck when someone catches it barehanded, blood dripping down. Gary turns around and Sylvia is stunned, wondering when Ray got there. It's Ray. He stops Monk's attack and tells him that's enough. Monk finally snaps out of it, drops the sword, and starts apologizing. Sylvia's shaken. Monk moved so fast she couldn't even follow him. Yet Ray crossed the distance in an instant. She can't understand how he did that. Monk keeps apologizing as blood runs from Ray's hand, but Ray says it's only a scratch. Monk says he lost control, and if Ray hadn't stopped him, it would have been much worse. Even after that near disaster, the students who placed bets start shouting at Kyle, asking who won and saying it had to be Gary. Kyle tries to calm them and says the match won't count since someone interfered, so everyone will get their money back. The crowd hates that answer. They curse at him, accuse the redhead of doing it on purpose, and then start throwing things. Poor Kyle keeps shouting that everyone will get their money back, trying to settle them down. The mess on the grounds gets even worse. The students start hurling stones, calling them trash, and yelling for the redheads to leave the academy. They keep mocking them as red-haired monsters, and drive them back with rocks until one hits Ray in the head. Monk jumps in front of Ray to shield him, but the crowd just curses at him and tells him to get lost. Gary checks on Ray and sees blood running from his head. Sylvia and Martha try to calm everyone down, but the crowd is out of control. Elsewhere, a silver-haired student named Sebastian Spoony grabs a large brick, ready to throw it at Ray. Monk rushes over and knocks the brick from his hand with a stone. Monk tells him to stop, saying Ray has nothing to do with this. But the silver-haired boy snaps back and warns Monk he'll remember this, calling him a brat. Sebastian is clearly losing his temper. Ray gets mocked again by the humans around him. They call him a red-haired freak, say nothing good happens when he's near, and wish he had never been born. As those cruel words pound through his head, Ray wonders why this always happens to him and thinks humans never fail to disgust him. Their insults keep echoing, tearing him down again and again. Ray's anger explodes, his veins bulge, and he decides they should be the ones to die. Then Sir Winford arrives and finally brings the chaos under control. Gary quickly tells the knight Ray is bleeding badly and needs treatment. Winford calls for the injured to be helped, but Ray insists it's only a scratch and asks if the knight needs something. Winford hesitates, then tells Ray that his mother is here to see him. Scarlet is waiting for her son. Ray walks in and calls out to his mother. She greets him warmly, saying it's been a long time and noticing how much he's grown. Ray happily says he got taller, takes her hand, and asks if Pops is doing well since she came here. But Scarlet brings terrible news. His father is gone. Ray panics, thinking he died, but Scarlet says that's not it. Jake left the house in the village. Shocked, Ray bombards her with questions. How could that happen when his father had been stuck in bed since getting infected? Outside the room, Winford hears everything and thinks about how he never had the courage to tell Ray the truth about the plague of shadows. Most infected people die within a year. A few like Jake can resist longer, but in the end, even they lose themselves to the shadows and become slaves that spread the plague. There has never been an exception. Scarlet explains that Jake had been fighting the plague of shadows for the past 10 years. Then she tells Ray about one night when she heard a noise. She found Jake sitting in a chair awake and able to move. She rushed over and hugged him. But Jake, whose body was turning black, said he couldn't hold on much longer and begged Scarlet to kill him. Hearing that, she broke down in tears and said she couldn't do it. Then his condition suddenly got worse as the plague took over. Jake burst into flames. Even then, he kept begging Scarlet to kill him. All she could do was watch him turn into a black shadow. Back in the present, Scarlet tells Ray she couldn't kill Jake and takes out a letter. She says his father left it for him. Ray opens the letter. Jake apologizes for not being there while he grew up and says he's proud that Ray made it into the academy. He thanks Ray for being his son and ends the letter by saying he loves him. After reading it, Ray starts crying. It feels like his father's final words, and he vows to find a way to save him. Later, Ray lies on his bed, crushed, replaying what his mother told him. She said she would find his father no matter what. When he tried to go with her, Scarlet refused and told him to follow his own path, saying Jake would want that too. She hugged him, happy to see him again, and told him not to worry about them. He should focus on what he needs to do. Now alone on his bed, Ray thinks about the last 10 years and how he's found nothing. He feels useless. He couldn't avenge his dragonkin, and he couldn't protect the people he cares about. To him, everything feels awful. Gary comes in and asks if he met his mother and what she said about his father's condition. But even though he's falling apart inside, he says his father is fine and walks out. Gary can tell something is wrong. As the protagonist leaves, he drops a paper behind, and Gary notices it. He picks it up, wondering what it is, when Dan suddenly sneaks up behind him. Dan snatches the paper, joking that it must be a love letter from a fangirl, since Gary was staring so hard. Gary panics and tries to grab it back. With a weird grin, Dan tells him not to be shy and asks to see the heartfelt confession. While they mess around, the other roommates walk in, confused. Gary finally blurts out that it's a letter for Ray, and that's how they all learn his father was infected by the plague of shadows. Dan says the poor guy had a rough life, so they should treat him better. Monk feels bad for MC after hearing all that. Later, in the crowded cafeteria, he walks by himself. Then Martha and Sylvia join him, pretending it just happened, and ask him to eat with them. Back in the dorm, he notices his bed is neatly cleaned and fixed up and wonders who did it. Dan and Ian awkwardly say Sylvia made his bed because she's so nice, though their bad acting gives them away. Ray immediately senses something is up. The next day, he notices fresh flowers in a pot. Gary says he picked some lilies to cheer him up. The protagonist takes it the wrong way and makes a face, asking if Gary fell in love with him. Gary instantly freaks out and says it's not like that at all. MC then says he's been meaning to ask what his roommates have been up to, and Gary decides to come clean. He accidentally saw the letter. He says he never meant to invade Ray's privacy and shouldn't have read it, but things got out of hand and everyone ended up seeing it. Panicking, Gary admits it's his fault they learned about his father. He just smiles and says they're the best, leaving Gary relieved that he's not mad. Their moment gets cut off by someone shouting for them to move. It's Monk, badly hurt and covered in blood, being carried in by Dan and Ian. Seeing him like that, Gary asks what happened. Dan says Sebastian beat him badly and even provoked him into a rank battle. Since rank battles are supposed to stop when someone gives up, the protagonist asks how Monk got hurt this badly. Dan explains Monk passed out during the fight, so he never got the chance to surrender. Sebastian kept beating him anyway on purpose. Monk weakly calls out to Ray and apologizes, saying he won't be able to help make his bed for the next few days. Sylvia says his limbs might be broken and they need a doctor right away, so Ian runs to get one. As Gary asks where MC is going, he says barely holding himself together that he's going to make Sebastian pay for what he did to Monk. Gary grabs his arm and tells him to calm down and not do anything stupid, but he, set on revenge, asks if Gary is coming. Gary hesitates, admitting he also wants payback for Monk, but he says this isn't just anger, it's retaliation. Then Sylvia steps in and says Sebastian is from House Delbert, while Gary adds that he's Sir Delbert's youngest son, so crossing him is dangerous. The protagonist doesn't care. He says Sebastian started this, so he should answer for it. Gary snaps, saying the protagonist doesn't get the situation. This isn't the first time Sebastian has done something like this. Nobody wants trouble with him, and the protagonist could get expelled. Still, the red-haired boy says he'll be fine because he's not stupid. If he challenges Sebastian in an official rank battle, he can get his revenge without breaking the rules. Later, House Delbert is out on the training grounds. Ray walks up and cuts into their training, asking for Sebastian right away. The night students say he doesn't belong there, and joke that Sebastian never mentioned a red-haired friend. MC tells them to move, and a silver-haired guy asks what the noise is about. The others tell him this redhead is trying to push in and wants Sebastian. Stepping up, Eric says Sebastian doesn't know some red-haired freak, and gets mad that he interrupted training. He even asks if the protagonist's parents never taught him manners. MC shoots back that if Eric isn't Sebastian, then he has no business with him. Eric clenches his teeth, and then Sebastian steps out and asks if Ray is looking for him. Sebastian guesses he's here because of his friend, probably another black belt. He skips the talk and challenges him on the spot. He sends the rank battle request through his watch, and Sebastian notes how blunt he is. But Sebastian turns it down after seeing the protagonist is only ranked 280. He mocks him, saying a fight that uneven would be boring. Laughing, he says he thought the other black belt was the strong one, but MC looks way too weak. Then he claims he didn't mean to hurt Monk, that the gap between nobles and peasants, like the black belts, is just natural. Saying he doesn't want a repeat of that, Sebastian shuts Ray down. When he steps forward, Eric blocks him and says Sebastian won't lower himself to fight someone like him. Eric boasts that he's rank 9, so if the protagonist can face him, maybe others will start taking him seriously too. Sebastian agrees and lets Eric take the fight. Ray then asks Sebastian if he'll accept after Eric loses. Though Eric is clearly offended, Sebastian says they'll talk once the match is over. The Delbert students get excited for another real match, happy they're on a strong team. People challenge every day. MC tells Eric to make the first move. Eric grips his wooden sword, thinks MC is acting cocky, and warns him not to cry for revenge later, while the others notice MC still hasn't even drawn his sword. Eric sees it as the perfect time to show what Sebastian taught him. Sebastian smugly says Eric is picking on little kids again, and the fight starts. He stays still and unarmed while Eric lunges first, swinging his sword. Eric thrusts hard, trying to wound him, but the protagonist slips past it with ease. Eric is stunned that Ray dodged such a fast, strong strike. Still, he says it's not over and attacks again. The match keeps going and MC keeps slipping past every blow, moving so lightly it barely looks real. Eric starts to panic. He's swinging as fast as he can, yet nothing lands. Then Ray suddenly throws a heavy punch at Eric, sending him crashing to the ground. He follows up with a brutal hit that leaves Eric shaking in pain. Once Eric passes out and gets carried to the infirmary, he turns to Sebastian and asks if he qualifies now. Sebastian asks what he'd gain by agreeing. The protagonist answers by tossing out 2 intermediate beast crystals, offering both if Sebastian wins. Shocked, Sebastian asks where he got them and makes sure they aren't stolen. Ray says his adventurer parents left them to him. MC adds that Sebastian can still win them before he uses them for gear. Tempted, Sebastian accepts, but with one condition. He wants the rank battle held in public, so no one says he forced the crystals out of him. He agrees right away, saying that's what he wanted too. Soon they're at the training ground where students are already cheering for Sebastian to crush the redhead. As they walk, Kyle asks if Ray is really about to fight Sebastian since he's ranked 2nd, and that's a terrible idea. Kyle warns that even if the protagonist wants easy betting money, Sebastian won't hold back. The protagonist tells him not to worry and to go place the bets. Since he can't stop him, Kyle just asks MC to make that bastard bleed. MC agrees with a fist bump. While Kyle starts taking bets on black belt Mim versus white belt Sebastian, Dan asks how long he can last, and Ian hopes he doesn't get hurt. Sylvia says this won't be a simple fight. Dan teases that love is making her blind, but Sylvia snaps back that she doesn't like the protagonist like that, and insists she's right. Annoyed, she tells Dan he's the blind one, if he can't see how strong MC is. Gary, though, isn't worried about who wins. He's worried what Sir Delbert will do after this. On the stage, Sebastian starts grandstanding, saying knights' children become knights, farmers' children stay farmers, and class lines can't be crossed. Sword in hand, he says Ray may have gotten bold after beating Eric, but this fight will show the real gap between them. When a knight student tells them to take position, he says Sebastian should save the negging for his lackeys. Right before the match starts, the protagonist wraps a black cloth over his face, leaving only his eyes exposed. The fight begins, and Sebastian strikes first with a hard swing. Ray dodges cleanly. Sebastian says he's lucky, since not many people avoid his opening attack. MC immediately proves his luck is bad by cutting Sebastian's face. Sebastian wipes the blood away, thinking the cut is shallow, and tells himself he can't beat him like this. In the middle of the fight, the protagonist asks why he talks so much, like all his wins came from running his mouth. Flustered, Sebastian bursts forward at top speed and says MC's luck ends now. He slips past the attack and uses a camouflage strike, cutting Sebastian across the face and shoulder. Everyone is shocked. Dan can't believe Sebastian got hurt first, and Ian is just as stunned. Gary wonders when Ray learned this technique and realizes the way he dodged Sebastian looked just like Sir Kay's style. After that, Sebastian finally gets serious, channels magic into his sword, and asks if the protagonist can dodge this. The crowd erupts as chi gathers on the blade, all of them cheering him on. Sebastian attacks with the chi-covered sword, and Ray still evades it. But this time Sebastian says he saw that move coming. Knowing MC will keep dodging, Sebastian unleashes a wild chain of strikes, trying to leave him no room to escape. The students go crazy, hyping up their white belt hero and telling him to put the red-haired brat in his place. Watching closely, Dan figures he can't keep dodging forever, and says Sebastian is going too far. Sylvia tells him to calm down and look closer. Ray is fine. She points out that Sebastian is actually the one losing, and they finally notice he's the one getting cut again and again, soaked in blood. Dan is speechless, thinking the protagonist had only been dodging. Gary, just as shocked, says the protagonist has been attacking the whole time. Sylvia explains that every dodge came with at least one counter, and MC has been draining Sebastian's stamina little by little. Covered in cuts, Sebastian screams that not even his father ever beat him like this. Threatening to kill Ray, he charges again. He slices him once more with his sword. Dan can hardly believe it's really the protagonist. Sylvia says he could have ended this much earlier and wonders why he keeps dragging it out. Gary realizes MC is doing it on purpose, breaking Sebastian down slowly like a predator playing with prey. By now, Sebastian's face is a mess of cuts and bruises, and he cries out, calling him a dirty peasant. But Ray, finally paying Sebastian back for what he did to Monk, goes for one last move. The protagonist lands one more hit on Sebastian's nose. Shaking, Sebastian threatens that his father will make the protagonist pay and that he's dead. MC lifts his sword again, thinking, talking to a guy like this is a total waste. Sebastian, finally breaking, says he'll forfeit. But before he can finish, he smacks him again with the sword. He keeps hitting him the same way Sebastian hurt Monk. Blinded by revenge, Ray won't let him surrender that easily. Sylvia and Gary realize this is getting bad. If it keeps going, Sebastian could die. Then someone suddenly yells for the protagonist to stop. It's Monk. He tries to calm him down, and MC wonders why he's here. Meanwhile, the battered Sebastian gives up, and the match ends with him as the winner. Right after that, the students rush over and carry Sebastian to the infirmary. Gary runs to Ray. Even beaten up, the white belt brat throws a fit and tells everyone to move. He keeps shouting that in the end, he'll be the one laughing. The story then moves to the top floor of Ivarian Knight Academy's central building. There, Delbert is making a huge scene over what happened to his son. Kay tries to calm him and says that by Knight rules, Ray Talon did nothing wrong. The black belt instructor tells him not to ignore the rules, but Delbert slams the table in anger. He says if rules didn't matter, he would have killed the red-haired brat himself, then demands Kay look at his son's ruined face. He accuses the protagonist of doing it on purpose, and says he was born a monster. One elder cuts in and says Delbert may not be wrong if the prophecy is real. That red-haired boy could destroy the kingdom. But Elder Van reminds them the prophecy also says the boy might become the world's chosen savior. Another elder interrupts, saying the child already shows signs of becoming a disaster. Someone else suggests expelling him now before things get worse. The head elder shuts that down, saying arguing is pointless. Since everyone disagrees, they should vote on whether Ray Talon should be expelled. In the end, Delbert, Elder Gibby, and Master Knight Rose vote to expel MC. On the other side, Elder Van, the head elder, Elder Humphrey, Winfred Bernardo, and Instructor K vote against it. So 3 support expulsion while 6 oppose it. Ray stays in the academy. Later, he is lying on his dorm roof with his eyes closed when he hears footsteps coming closer and wonders who it is. It's Sylvia. She couldn't find him in the dorm, so she checked the roof. The protagonist says he wants to be alone, and she asks if he's thinking about Monk. That catches him off guard, like she read his mind. She admits he's different from most people, and not very good at talking or understanding feelings. Ray cuts her off, saying he doesn't care. Flustered, Sylvia quickly says that's not what she meant. She explains she knows he isn't a bad person. Whenever she sees him angry or confused, she wishes she could help, and hopes he'll trust them more since they're friends. When she says that, MC suddenly pushes her against the wall, leaving her stunned. Then he activates his dragon eye. Looking up at her, he asks if she's afraid of him. She answers honestly, sometimes she is, but she still doesn't think he's a bad person. Then Sylvia smiles and says his dragon eye actually suits him, telling him not to see himself as a monster. As soon as he hears that, Ray's eye returns to normal. He turns away, thinking that whenever he believes he's finally seen what humans are really like, something changes again. It makes him realize he still has a long way to go before he truly understands people. Elsewhere, Delbert storms out of the building and swears he'll kill the red-haired monster someday, prophecy or not. Then Elder Gibby walks up to him. He says he knows Delbert believes knights should come only from noble blood, and admits that idea caught his interest. Meanwhile, Sylvia heads downstairs when a blonde white belt student stops her and asks where he is. She tells him he is on the roof. He thanks her and heads up, while Sylvia wonders if she's ever seen him before. The protagonist is still on the roof when he hears someone coming again and assumes Sylvia came back. But it's someone else, the blonde guy. He says MC must have mistaken him for another person. Then he introduces himself as Harry Delbert, a second-year student. Ray immediately looks annoyed when he hears he's from the Delbert family. Harry says he beat his little brother, so MC assumes he's here for revenge. Harry denies it and says the protagonist got the wrong idea. He's not here over something that petty. He actually wants to thank him. The protagonist is shocked, but Harry says he knows how arrogant Sebastian is and that his brother never trained seriously. It was only a matter of time before someone beat sense into him. After hearing that, MC turns to leave, but Harry stops him. They can't have an official rank match since they're in different years, so he asks him to spar with him instead. He offers a wooden sword and Ray takes it. The protagonist says after all that talk, Harry really did come for revenge. Harry says no, he just wants to see how strong the guy who beat his brother really is. Then he tells the red-haired boy to show him what he can do. MC gets ready and feels right away that Harry is different from the others. Because of that, he changes his style and attacks, but Harry blocks it perfectly. The force makes Ray lean back and Harry praises him for choosing the right move. He is stunned. He senses something strange. Normally that strike should have shattered the other sword already. He realizes that if Harry keeps attacking like this, his own sword will break first. Harry then figures out the protagonist doesn't know how to use chi yet. Once he sees brute strength won't work, MC switches to the black belt techniques he learned. They keep trading blows, but Harry dodges with ease and asks if that's all Ray has. He starts getting worked up and breaks into a sweat. Then Harry brings down one final heavy strike with his wooden sword, sending the protagonist stumbling to the ground. Blood starts to run, and at that moment, Harry ends the fight. As he's about to leave, Ray in rough shape somehow gets back up. He asks Harry if he's the top-ranked second-year knight apprentice. Harry replies that he's only ranked 50th. MC can barely believe someone this strong is only number 50. Harry waves goodbye and says they should fight again, once Ray learns chi properly. That leaves him wondering if learning chi could really make him that much stronger. The next scene shifts to the Elder's office, where Winford worries about the border, since more knights have gone missing. He says the threat isn't just outside. The Dark Guild may have already slipped into the academy. The head elder confirms it's no longer just a rumor, and when Winford says the students should at least be warned, the head elder agrees, then adds something else matters too. He tells Winford to bring the 5 red-haired kids so they can be told about their calling. After that, the protagonist sits on the roof trying to gather his aura. He's been trying to pull it into his body, but it never works. With the rain pouring down, he decides to stop for the day, but then he spots some suspicious figures sneaking through the academy. He quickly realizes they're setting up an ambush after spotting their target. The masked group moves in quietly toward that target, who turns out to be one of the elders. Ray activates his dragon eye and sees they're a plague of shadows. Troubled, he removes his black belt and wonders if they have anything to do with his father. Meanwhile, the masked attackers block the elder's path and tell him this is where his road ends. The elder mutters that the rumors about the Dark Guild inside the academy were true. One of them says he realized it too late, and soon the Dark Guild will control the whole academy with no one able to stop them. As the old man starts fighting all 4 at once, someone suddenly jumps in. It's Ray. Hiding his face, he steps beside the elder with sword in hand and says the fight is now 2 against 4. The elder recognizes him as one of the students and apologizes for dragging him into this. The guild member is shocked to see where the kid came from, but another says it doesn't matter. They're both going to die anyway. The elder gets ready, uses magic, and tells Ray to keep 2 of them busy. As Ray clashes with the pair, he realizes the old man's chi is different. He also sees these shadow beasts still have their own minds. Ray slips past their attack and tries to strike from behind, but the other one cuts in. Then one of them casts magic. Ray bends back to avoid it, and they instantly figure out he can't use chi. He's just an amateur. Realizing they exposed him, he grips his sword with his mouth and throws them off. Confused, they rush in to kill him, but he keeps dodging until one shadow starts thinking this brat moves strangely. When they lose sight of Ray and still can't catch him, they look around for the red-haired boy and suddenly see 2 allies already killed by the elder. The old man tells the last 2 to keep going. He wants to see what the kid can do. Feeling cornered, they consider using their secret power, but first decide to get rid of Ray. Watching from above, Ray realizes the old man never really needed help. Still, now that he has a chance to fight, he jumps at the shadows from behind. Ray keeps annoying them since they still can't catch him, but eventually they box him in. Just when MC seems stuck, the elder shouts for him to grab the man's hand and pull. Then he tells Ray to turn and use that force to throw him over. Ray follows exactly and hurls the man toward the elder. The elder answers with a heavy chi punch and blasts the shadow fighter away in an explosion. Seeing that, Ray can only wonder how strong the old man really is. Right then, the knights arrive. The last guild member tries to flee and Ray starts after him, but the elder stops him, saying not to chase someone who's already desperate. As the knights reach them, Ray gains a new ability after all these years. The knights check on the elder and he says he's fine. He mentions one enemy escaped so they can go after him if they want. The knights take off in pursuit. The elder thanks Ray for helping and calls him talented, so Ray asks why the guild attacked him, but the elder avoids the question. Instead, he taps Ray's shoulder and asks if he'll join the martial arts club when he becomes a second year. After that, the elder leaves in a burst of chi, vanishing like the wind. Ray just stares, thinking the old man is seriously weird. Next, Ray is called to the head elder's office, where Winford is already waiting, and says the head elder wants to see him. That makes Ray wonder if he got caught already. It turns out Winford gathered all the red-haired kids, Ian, Kyle, Sloth, Badger, and Ray. The boys get restless, guessing the elder has some special mission for them, but the head elder gets right to it and says they were called because of a prophecy. He explains that 10 years ago, heaven foretold their land would be saved from ruin by a red-haired boy. Kyle quickly assumes it could be one of them, but the elder says they found 10 red-haired children who match that sign. That leaves Ray even more shocked. When they ask about the other 5, the elder says those children have talent for magic and study at Roland Academy. Hearing that, Ray remembers Amy and thinks she probably already knows about them. While Kyle and the others get excited about saving the world, the elder keeps explaining the prophecy. Long ago, 5 dragon knights saved the land, defeated the shadows, and founded Avrian Knight Academy. Now the head elder puts that legacy on their shoulders and says they'll get training beyond the normal and special courses. These 5 red-haired kids are expected to become Avrian Academy's next dragon knights. After they leave, Kyle and one twin are thrilled to be called saviors, while Ray asks Ian if his hair was always red. Ian says yes, and that it caused him plenty of trouble growing up. Ray realizes everyone else's hair was always red, but is changed from black to red. That makes him wonder if he should even count as a dragon knight, and he starts thinking the head elder is hiding something. Back in the head elder's office, Winford questions why he didn't tell the children the whole prophecy. The head elder says they already carry enough, so the rest can wait until they're ready. Winford reluctantly agrees. Then the story shifts to Ray researching the dragon knights. He notes that some people still see dragons as evil, while others think they never existed. A small number still believe dragons once protected this land, back before shadows spread everywhere. As he keeps reading, one book stands out, because it mentions guidance from God. Books about God are forbidden to humans, so Ray finds nothing useful, and goes to a priest for answers. At the same time, besides special training with Sir Kay, they also train under Winford to prepare as dragon knights. During all this, Ray thinks that without knight training, he would have gone straight to ask God why he was turned into a human. He says a full year passes with training, plus time he still makes for hunting, and tomorrow starts their second year. Back in the present, while Ray is asleep, he hears something and sees Gary shaking from a nightmare. Gary opens his eyes and jumps when he sees Ray right in front of him. He tells Ray to get some sleep since they have a ceremony in the morning. Ray says he's fine but stays curious and wonders what nightmare scared Gary that badly. The next morning, Gary still looks like he barely slept, and Ray worries about him. Then Sylvia greets them and asks if they've picked a club. Since Ray has no clue what she means, Sylvia gets annoyed and explains every second year has to join a club for training. She picks the medic club, and Gary has already chosen swordsmanship. Ray feels a little left out, then remembers someone once told him to join a club. He recalls the old man telling him to try the martial arts club. Since nothing else interests him, Ray decides to check it out, and if it's boring, he'll just use the time to hunt beasts. After Ray got that new ability, he learned he had no mana, which is why he failed the assessment years ago. Now he hopes that changes once he starts absorbing intermediate beast crystals. But after beating Sebastian, too many people are watching him. Since he's ranked 10th now, he figures he'll have to skip some fights. MC heads to the martial arts club and is surprised by how far out it is. Seeing no one outside, he walks in and wonders if this rundown place is really the club. Ray calls out and spots someone sitting inside. He walks over, but the man doesn't react at all, and he can't even sense his presence. Thinking the guy might be dead, he taps the old man's shoulder, only for the elder to grab his hand and slam him hard to the floor. The old man snaps, asking how dare he come in here. The protagonist quickly explains he came to join the martial arts club because the elder told him to. That calms the old man down, and he recognizes him as the red-haired student who helped that day. It is the same elder, and he starts patting Ray. Our guy complains that attacking strangers first nearly got him killed. The elder apologizes and says too many suspicious people have been coming around lately. He's pleased MC took his advice and joined, then happily announces he'll be MC's teacher. Hearing that, he is stunned and feels like he got tricked into this club. Stuck one-on-one with the old man, he starts wondering how he'll ever escape. The elder tells the protagonist to begin with the basics, since he couldn't use chi when they first met. As he explains chi attacks, Ray figures this club must be unpopular for a reason, but the elder insists people just don't understand martial arts. Once he's done teaching him, MC will learn that his own hands are his best weapons. Then he asks about the people who attacked him before, and the elder says they were from the Dark Guild. He adds that he will hear more about them in second year. The old man explains the Dark Guild wants to destroy the Allure Kingdom. Their leader used to be a high-ranking member of Avrian Knight Academy before being expelled and forming the group. Remembering how their aura felt like the plague of shadows, the protagonist asks if they're dangerous. The old man decides to be honest. Since he owes MC, he admits the guild wanted him dead because he's one of the Academy's 6 elders. Elder Vaughn then takes off his shirt. He says he may be old, but he's still proud of his muscles. Figuring Vaughn might know about his prophecy, Ray decides not to hold back. So when Vaughn tells him to show his strength, the MC goes all out. He throws a full power punch at the elder. The hit feels like slamming into solid metal. His hand is nearly crushed, and Vaughn asks if he used chi. Ray blows on his hand and says no. The old man gets excited, saying he's strong as a bull and will soar once he learns chi. Hearing that, the protagonist starts doubting how reliable this guy is. Vaughn proudly pats his shoulder and says it's time to start. MC protests that he never agreed to join, but he already feels trapped. Training begins, and Vaughn explains that chi can be made through breathing. Then he transfers some into his body. He tells the protagonist to feel that energy moving through him. It feels warm, and MC is amazed to sense chi flowing like that. Then Vaughn suddenly passes out. Ray panics when he realizes his mana activated. Thinking the old man might be dead, he tries to wake him up. But after checking his heartbeat, he lets out a breath and figures Vaughn only fainted. He quickly pieces it together. His skill activated because the system absorbed mana from Vaughn while he was transferring chi. And now his mana bar is almost full. Since Vaughn still won't wake up, Ray smacks him and decides the old man isn't that tough after all. After waiting 10 minutes, the dragon gives up on him dying and decides to use the time to train instead. The protagonist activates Dragon Eye and watches the chi moving inside his body. He tries gathering it in his solar plexus and actually succeeds. Then he starts circulating it through his body. But when he tries to control it, the chi keeps fading away. No matter how many times he tries, thinking the flow is too unstable, he decides to use more energy. As Ray pours in more chi, his body starts to hurt. Things begin getting out of control, and Vaughn finally wakes up just in time to see MC overflowing with energy and losing control. Shocked, Elder Vaughn yells at him not to move and pulls the energy out of his body. When he forces it out, the blast wrecks the place. Only then does Vaughn reveal that Ray was close to killing himself. The power inside him was that dangerous. Before he can fully process it, he collapses. He wakes up in the hospital to voices nearby. It's Sylvia and Kyle, guessing he passed out from mana deficiency. Sylvia says an old man rushed him there and only calmed down after the dean said the protagonist would recover fast. Kyle gets suspicious, wondering who that old man is if he could get the hospital dean involved. Ray cringes at Kyle's loud voice and wonders if the elder had to make such a scene. To clear things up, he says the old man is the martial arts club instructor. MC then asks why Kyle is at the hospital, and Kyle says he joined the medic club because he's always liked medicine. Right then, Gary peeks through the curtain like a ghost. He's glad he woke up since all the noise was driving him crazy. Seeing Gary by the bed, he jokes to himself that their dorm practically moved into the hospital. Gary looks awful and says he hasn't been sleeping well, so he collapsed during training and came here to rest. While he argues with Kyle, who keeps telling him to take better care of himself, Ray starts wondering what kind of nightmare Gary has been having. After being discharged, he heads back to the martial arts club. Elder Vaughn immediately yells at him for returning and calls him an idiot. The protagonist jumps, and Vaughn snaps that if he hadn't stepped in, the protagonist could have died or lost the ability to use chi for good. Then he reluctantly praises him, saying gathering that much shine on day one is impressive. MC starts thinking maybe he really is talented, but the elder shuts that down fast and says not to get cocky. First, he needs to control only a fist-sized amount of chi. As Ray learns control, he explains that he spent the next 5 days practicing the basics through different parts of his body. For several days, he trained to send chi exactly where he needed it, as fast as possible. It was hard, but he learned a lot. The scene then shifts to the south gate of Avrian City, where Lancey says this is their first hunt as second years. He tells them to listen carefully. There are 3 safe hunting zones for beast crystals, and if they want to survive, they need to stay on the path. He adds that the 3 teams will each go to a different area, so they can learn about different magical beasts. As they head out, Martha's team moves toward the insect forest, which Kyle clearly hates already. Ray notices Gary still doesn't look right. When the first bug appears, Sylvia tells everyone to stay alert, and Dan says they're just regular bugs, so no one should panic. That confidence vanishes when Dan and Kyle realize the bug is as big as a person's head. Martha starts cutting them down with her arrows. Sylvia warns that bugs may be weak, but they attack in swarms. A swarm of bees rushes them, and everyone jumps into action. Kyle fights off the gross bugs while Dan points out how fast they are. Sylvia warns Ray to watch out. He activates Chai and takes the bugs down barehanded. Kyle is impressed that he learned Chai, and he wants to test his training, but Dan tells him to quit showing off and use a weapon. Suddenly, Monk and the protagonist hear a noise, and they see a bug has bitten Gary's arm, leaving him bleeding. Ian kills the bug and asks if Gary is okay. Sylvia checks the wound and says it isn't deep. She asks Ian to help remove the armor so she can treat it. Watching this, Ray grows more worried. Gary has been acting strange for a while, and now he got hurt by a beginner beast. He decides to ask him about it later. Sylvia then uses Chai on Gary's arm. Dan is impressed when the wound closes up a lot and asks if she learned that in the medic club. Kyle says yes, and explains that Chai can speed up cell recovery, making it useful for simple first aid. MC realizes he's not the only one learning new skills, and decides to train even harder. Later, Dan picks up a beginner beast crystal, and says they probably won't reach the tax limit today. When he asks what tax he means, Dan explains that by Academy rules, if they collect more than 10 crystals, they have to hand over 1/10 when leaving the hunting grounds. He says that's just how the Academy works. Ray immediately thinks he needs a way around Lancey, and it seems he already collected more than 10 crystals. Then he checks his dragon system. At the hunting ground entrance, Lancey starts collecting beast crystals. The protagonist only hands over 5, and Lancey blows up, sure he's being tricked. He orders the protagonist to remove his equipment. MC calmly takes everything off. When Lancey still can't find any crystals, he gets furious and says it's impossible. Then he accuses Ray of hiding them somewhere on the mountain, but he pushes his luck and smugly says Lancey won't find anything. As they leave, Monk asks how he pulled that off, when he clearly got more than 5 crystals. The protagonist just says it's a secret. Monk has figured out that when he stores beast crystals in the system, the real ones turn into useless rocks. The system gives him the crystals directly after he defeats magical beasts, while everyone else has to dig them out of the corpses. To avoid suspicion, he tells the system not to auto-extract them anymore. Besides, once he stores them, he can't take them back out. That leaves him with only 5 crystals to show, so he doesn't have to pay anything. After finding a way around the tax, Ray reminds himself to be careful. If Lancey learns the truth, he won't let it go. On the way back, he calls out to Gary, thinking he forgot something. The moment he taps Gary's shoulder, Gary starts muttering about opening the red door. Then he begins shaking in fear and screaming while covering his ears. Ray tries to calm him down, and Monk notices they're no longer behind him. He tells Sylvie and Dan he's going back to look for them. Monk finds the two of them and asks what's going on, saying everyone else is already far ahead. The protagonist says Gary isn't doing well, and keeps talking about a red door. Gary is terrified, mumbling that he has to open it because a voice keeps calling him. Monk makes a guess, maybe Gary is talking about Avery in prison. Ray speaks to the voice and it says it has been waiting for him. Then it starts revealing hidden history and the world's secrets. The voice seems to be coming from the red door. Then it suddenly vanishes when the door is shut. Ray yells for it to wait, then jolts awake shaken because the dream felt way too real. Seeing Gary mumble about the red door in his sleep, MC realizes it may be the same one from his own dream. We then flash back to the hunting grounds, where he asks Gary what kind of nightmares he's been having. Panicking, Gary says he only passed Avery in prison once, and happened to look at its red gates. Ever since then he's had nightmares every night, but when he wakes up he can't remember them. Still, Gary says he feels endless fear, and something behind those red doors keeps calling him. He wants to go there, but Monk panics and says the place is totally forbidden, they could even be expelled. Gary says he has no choice. If he doesn't face it, the voices in his head will torture him to death. Ray agrees to go with him, and asks Monk to come too, but Monk hesitates, warning that they could die in there. The protagonist stays firm, saying their skills will work better at night, so it's worth trying. When Monk refuses, Gary feels guilty and tells the protagonist not to pressure him. He's already grateful the protagonist is coming, but MC insists, saying Monk is better at stealth than either of them and would be a huge help. With no way out, Monk finally agrees to come. He tells Ray he's paying him back for what happened at the duel. Later that night, he wonders if Avery in prison's red gates are causing Gary's nightmares, since he saw them in a dream too. He starts thinking the Academy prison may be hiding this world's secrets. The scene shifts to Avery in prison, where knights stand guard by the doors. Late that night, the three sneak into the area and hide. Monk nervously asks if they really won't get caught. Gary says they should be fine. He's been watching the place and learned that every Tuesday the black armored knights switch shifts with white belted ones. When asked why it happens at the same time each week, Gary guesses it's some kind of weekly meeting. Meanwhile, Ray activates his dragon eye to inspect the prison. Something feels wrong. Everything is completely dark. Since the prison is underground, that seems suspicious. Soon, the guards start switching shifts and head off to the meeting. The black armored guard leaves with the others. The protagonist decides it's time to move. But suddenly, someone grabs Gary's hand and asks what they're doing. It's Molly, a third-year black belt student. She says she was training nearby and spotted them sneaking around. When Molly figures out they're trying to break into the prison, Gary blurts out that they were planning to, before realizing she caught them at the worst time. Then barrels suddenly go crashing around, pulling the guards' attention away. Ray immediately realizes Monk has started the plan, so he tells Gary they need to move now. The moment Molly hears Monk is involved, she freaks out and says they're breaking the rules. She keeps calling them crazy, and Gary asks MC what to do with her. Thinking they might kill her, Molly quickly reminds them they're supposed to be kind fellow students. Then Gary chops her in the neck and knocks her out, saying she just wouldn't stop talking. Ray decides they have to bring Molly along, since they'll be finished if she wakes up and exposes them. Right then they rush for the red door, while Monk works on opening the gate and the guards stay distracted. They slip into the prison successfully while the guards keep arguing over the barrels. But inside, someone appears to be watching them. It's the same man who killed the Stage 4 proctor. Smirking, he reveals he lured them here on purpose and says Elder Gibby will be pleased. Meanwhile, the group heads farther in and is shocked to find there aren't any windows at all. Gary lights the area with a glowstone, and Monk freaks out when he sees Molly. Gary explains they brought her because she caught them. Molly eventually wakes up and Monk asks if she's okay. She's furious, yelling at them for treating a senior like that and threatening to report them. Gary tries to explain why they did it. Ray coldly tells her to go ahead and report them and shout as loud as she wants, so they all get expelled together. That only makes her madder, and Monk quickly tells her not to mind him. He walks off and Gary gently suggests that since they're already inside, they might as well look around. Molly is still really annoyed with the protagonist. She says she won't take responsibility if this goes wrong, grabs the glowstone from Gary, and takes the lead since she's the senior. As they go deeper, Monk realizes there are actually inmates in the prison. Gary's just as confused, saying the place was always forbidden and he never heard of criminals being brought here. Molly then says there's a rumor the Academy uses this prison to hide what it really wants to keep secret. She adds that if those things ever came out, it would cause a huge uproar. Hearing that, Ray figures she doesn't know what they're hiding either. Molly snaps that they're only rumors and calls him a brat. Still, she says no one besides 3 knights and 6 elders has ever been down here. Then a strong wind starts blowing. A terrible smell spreads through the area. Ray hears something nearby. Monk tells them they should turn back, and even Molly, now scared, agrees. But Gary refuses. He's determined to learn what's been haunting his dreams. So the 4 of them keep going, and finally reach the bottom. To their surprise, there's another door. Staring at the huge gate, Molly wonders what it's made of, because it looks ancient. Gary only cares about getting through, so he starts trying to open it with his chi. The giant door doesn't budge at all, and Gary asks Monk to help. Ray uses his dragon eye too, but still can't see past it. He guesses it's protected by a high-level spell or some special seal. Molly mocks Gary, saying he made all that noise like he could handle it alone. Monk thinks the door is locked, and warns that something far stronger than them is behind it, so they should leave. But Gary refuses to turn back, and asks MC to help him. The moment he places a hand on the gate, the dragon system pops up, and asks if he wants to open the door. Confused, Ray agrees. In an instant, the door opens. Monk is stunned and asks how he did it, and the protagonist says he only touched it. The gears rumble deep below, but the magic crystal lights only a small space ahead. As they move on, a heavy fear settles over all of them. Then a harsh sound echoes when Gary steps on something. Monk trembles and asks what it was, while Molly, terrified too, grabs onto MC. Flustered, he tells her to get off. Gary lowers the glowstone and sees he stepped on bones. He guesses they belong to a beast, or maybe a dragon. He says dragons don't die that easily, while Molly thinks the knights must have dragged the creature out. As they go deeper, Ray sees they're nearing the end, and Molly says they can finally get out of there. When they reach it, Gary says there's a large space underneath. Molly says the area looks like prison cells, and Monk notices there are a lot of them. Then Monk realizes the cells are empty, and fears the monsters kept there may have escaped. He says they've seen enough and should leave, and Molly agrees. If monsters really were locked down here, they'd have to be incredibly strong, and if they're gone, everyone here is in real danger. Ray tells Gary they've already come this far, so if they head back now, they can still get out before the guards switch again. But Gary starts acting strange, and says that if they just go a little farther, they'll find the truth. As he keeps walking, the protagonist warns him not to go any farther, but Gary seems like he's losing himself. He keeps moving deeper into the cell, following the voices calling him forward. MC tries to stop him, but a powerful wind suddenly tears through the place. Gary falls into some kind of pit. In that instant, Ray realizes whatever is here is truly dangerous. Drawing his sword, he takes position and sees a giant horned beast burst out from the prison. Molly freezes in fear as it charges at them. It's a monarch-rank magical beast, the Minotaurus. Then the Minotaurus unleashes a massive roar. The force slams everyone to the ground. Molly twists her ankle and can't run. The beast grabs her in its claw. Monk rushes in and slashes its arm, making it drop Molly to the ground. After landing the hit, Monk runs to her and asks if she can stand. As he yanks her up, the Minotaurus gets ready to attack again. This time it's a magical strike, and Monk panics, yelling that if Molly can't move, they'll all die here. A second later, the beast fires the attack, and Monk turns back in terror. Gary crashes down into a pit. He worries about Monk and the others, wondering if that really was a monster. At the same time, Ray blocks the beast's attack with his sword, while his wolf protects Monk and Molly. Monk is stunned and asks why a magical beast is helping them. Busy holding the monster back, he says there's no time to explain, just trust that the wolf is with them. Then he orders Noir to get Molly somewhere safe, leaving Monk shocked that the wolf obeys. As Noir carries Molly off, the protagonist tells Monk to hide his presence and kill the Minotaurus in one strike, once he pins it down. Monk warns that's too risky since the beast is far too strong. Still, Ray tells him to trust him, and starts gathering chi. Monk hides, and MC draws the beast toward himself. Somehow, the monster knocks his sword away. Unarmed, he grabs one of its horns and tries to force it down, but the beast is too strong and drags him into the wall. Even so, he refuses to let go and yells for Monk to attack. Monk rushes in from behind with 2 swords. He stabs with all his strength but is shocked when the blades barely go in. The Minotaurus's hide is like metal. Just then, Gary arrives and shouts for Monk to move. He swings his sword at the beast, but the blade shatters. Gary is thrown back by the monster's magic attack while Ray uses chi to keep it pinned. Refusing to let it break free, the protagonist activates his new mana skill, and finally releases the horn. After absorbing its mana, he gathers all his chi and strikes with everything he has. Using his bare hands, he slashes across the Minotaurus's back. Ray is thrilled that the old man's training actually worked. Then Gary warns him to watch out, but it's too late, and the beast knocks MC away, sending him crashing to the ground. Coughing, he realizes he absorbed too much mana. His body can't handle it yet, and he's still too weak. As the beast closes in, Ray scrambles for a way to stop it, but then he sees someone. It's their instructor, Sir Kay, calmly smoking as usual. He says they really angered something huge, and tells the brats to move aside. Monk lights up with relief. Sure, they're saved. Sergei says they can praise him later and charges the beast, aiming for its horn. In one blow, he snaps off one of the Minotaurus's horns. When he goes in again, the beast grabs his leg, but he counters right away and slices through its fingers. The Minotaurus roars in rage and charges him. Then it suddenly stops and looks around. Sergei has vanished. Like a shadow, he appears on its back and cuts through its head, killing it instantly. As Monk supports Gary, he can only think about how easily Sergei took down such a monster. Ray tells Noir to head back. When Noir obeys, he gains a new ability and wonders if it came from absorbing that lightning attack. Sergei picks up the unconscious Molly and says the monarch beast was nearly out of mana, otherwise even he would have had trouble. Then he tells them to follow him before something worse shows up. As they leave, Sergei demands an explanation, while Molly pretends to be unconscious to dodge blame. Monk nervously asks if they'll be expelled. Cater says they should be grateful expulsion is even still an option after sneaking in here. Thinking it's a miracle they're alive, Monk and Gary apologize, but then Sergei turns and winks at them. He says it'd be a waste to expel students who fought a monarch beast and survived. He'll let it slide, as long as they keep quiet and say he never saw them. Hearing that, the three of them are filled with relief. At the door, Sergei asks how they got it open. Ray lies and says it was already open, and Gary backs him up. Sergei finds that suspicious. Then the protagonist hears a voice say it will wait for him there, and that he should come back when he's stronger. He panics, recognizing it as the same voice from his dreams, and then the door shuts. Later that night, at the Academy Hospital, Sergei is getting treated. The dean is shocked he was hurt this badly and assumes training 4 students at once is too much, while the dean scolds him. The others are there too, and Ray thinks Sergei is even scarier when he acts playful. MC sits up and asks Gary why he kept going deeper when they told him to stop. Gary says he felt a strong urge to go on and couldn't control his body or thoughts. Hearing that, Monk says that after reading the book, he learned the Minotaurus doesn't just control lightning, it also has a power called the Labyrinth of the Heart. According to legend, the monster was born from a queen and a white bull meant for sacrifice. When the king found out, he was furious and ordered a giant maze built at the edge of the world, placing it under heavy guard. The monster was locked inside, but it had godlike strength. As it grew, its desire to escape became the power to twist people's hearts. Anyone affected by it loses control and gets ruled by intense emotions. Ray thinks the story sounds ridiculous. A human and a bull having a child. Gary asks how it ends, but the book doesn't say. Monk guesses the beast escaped, or they wouldn't have found it in that prison. Gary, finally linking it to his nightmares, thinks it makes sense. The beast must have left offspring behind. He instead keeps thinking about the voice from the prison, and wonders if the monster really caused Gary's nightmares. Then Sergei walks in and tells them to stay put and rest for a few days. Thinking he's about to get scolded again, Ray calls out to him, and Sergei assumes they're worried about his injuries, so he says it's nothing. Just a couple broken ribs. But the protagonist only wanted to ask if he got a monarch beast crystal, and whether they'd get a share. That makes Sergei snap. He says they get nothing, those are his payment, and he didn't get hurt just to split the reward. MC looks completely done with the rant. Before leaving, Sergei says they'll do a full checkup in the morning. Still curious, he asks one more thing. He wants to know how Sergei knew they were in the prison. Gary points out that only they should have known, since Molly wanted to report them but never got the chance. Calling them brats, Sergei says they asked too many questions, and reveals that the lurkers told him. Hearing that, Ray realizes they were being watched the whole time. Monk brings up the rumor that certain people in the academy secretly protect students, while Gary adds that they also leak information. Sergei says he won't reveal who it was and tells them to focus on the things they really should be worrying about. After he leaves, the protagonist thinks the more he learns, the more the academy feels far less simple than it first seemed. When he goes back to bed, he thinks about his new ability. It can absorb a target's magic and boost spells of the same element. To him, it doesn't seem very useful. He looks over at Gary, remembers making them keep Noir a secret, and figures Sergei didn't notice either. He also realizes Gary doesn't seem to be having nightmares anymore, and wonders if the beast really was the cause. The next scene moves to a martial arts club at the market. Ray is training with Elder Vaughn. Vaughn praises his fighting style, especially how he can battle with a sword in his mouth. MC says his sword feels more defensive now, and his bare-handed attacks still aren't strong enough. Vaughn agrees. Then the old man excitedly says he has something for him. He digs through a closet, and Ray wonders what could even be hidden in a place like this. At last, Vaughn pulls it out, and it turns out to be dragon turtle gauntlets. The name catches his attention. He puts on the heavy arm guards, and Vaughn reveals they can even resize to fit the user. As the gauntlets shrink to match the protagonist's arms, he asks if they're made from beast crystals. Vaughn says yes, just from an intermediate dragon turtle crystal. If it were advanced, they'd be much stronger. Vaughn adds that he'd like to give Ray even better gear, but that wouldn't be fair to the other contestants. Confused by that, he asks MC if he hasn't been going to class. Vaughn explains that every student from second year up joins the Academy's yearly tournament, and one-on-one matches decide the 5 strongest. He says those 5 will represent the Academy in the World Combat Tournament against top fighters from across the world. Vaughn gives him the gauntlets and tells him to at least place 10th. If he ranks well using them, he can keep them. Fired up, he accepts and thanks him. Now that he has a weapon, Vaughn tells him to get defensive gear too, something like armor or a shield, since it helps a lot on missions. The protagonist heads to the weapon shop for armor and is stunned by the prices. The vendor says the price is firm. Making defensive gear from an intermediate beast crystal costs 10 beginner crystals, or $1,000. Then he asks for 10 more beast crystals as hush money, saying he doesn't care where MC got them. He gets annoyed but figures that if he hands them over, the Academy won't have proof he hid any crystals. If they're watching him now, hunting alone may be over. So he gives in and tosses over the pouch of crystals. Smiling, the vendor promises quality work and takes the pouch. Ray glares at him, thinking people are sneaky no matter their job. Just then Sylvia walks up, happy to see him. He asks if she's here for equipment too, and she says yes, there are no classes today. The protagonist leans in and quietly tells her the vendor scammed him for extra crystals. Hearing that, Sylvia storms over and says she wants to place a commission. The vendor clearly knows her and warmly greets the young lady from the Hart family. Sylvia then asks the price of the defensive gear for her friend. Hearing that title, Ray starts wondering if Sylvia comes from an important family. A little later, she gives back the extra crystals the vendor took. MC thanks her, but he can't ignore how differently people get treated. He remembers Sebastian Delbert saying knights' kids become knights, and farmers' kids stay farmers. He starts to think that ugly idea may really be how the world works. Shaking that off, he decides to repay her. He pulls out a Wallabear intermediate crystal, but Sylvia refuses, saying it's worth way more than 10 beginner crystals. Ray insists, telling her he doesn't need it much now that he has a weapon and armor. As he leaves and waves goodbye, Sylvia blushes and holds the crystal close. Later, when the protagonist keeps buying gear from the same shop, the vendor apologizes, saying he didn't know the protagonist was close to the young lady of the Hart family. MC is in a good mood too. His chi training is improving, and with armor plus Vaughn's gauntlets, he's excited to hunt stronger monsters. The scene shifts to Elder Gibby, who's irritated that the kids escaped the prison alive. The man from before reports that the lurkers told Sir Kay and Kay saved the students. Gibby didn't expect Kay to be useful. The man adds that with the 3 knights and Kay involved, attacking the students now would be hard. He suggests testing Knight Delbert, but Gibby says not to rush. Delbert is a promising candidate. He still wants to test his loyalty first, since he's one of the knights, and tells the man to leave him alone for now. Instead, he names someone else and says to offer him a new position in the Pure Guild if he succeeds. At the Mountain Forest hunting grounds, everyone is pumped, and Gary says they need to earn more money for equipment. Monk thanks him, and Ian does too, saying he'll repay him with something even better. He just looks confused, asking what they mean. When Dan grabs him and says he knows the protagonist is shy, but they're all really grateful. MC asks Sylvia if this has to do with her, and Martha quickly leaves them alone. Sylvia explains that she traded the Woolly Bear intermediate crystal he gave her for gold, then shared it with the team in his name. Since she already had a good shield, she says it wasn't useful to her anyway, then apologizes for not asking first. Thinking he's upset, Ray just pats her shoulder and says she'd make a great leader. The sudden praise makes her blush hard, and she shoves him away. Nearby, Monk, Dan, and Martha secretly watch the whole thing. Later, Gary asks the protagonist if something happened between him and Sylvia, but the clueless MC has no idea what he means. Gary sighs and tells MC not to treat Amy like that. Later, at the hunting grounds, a swarm of bugs glides toward them and the group gets ready to fight. Ray activates his dragon eye and sees they're all beginner rank monsters, so they should be okay. Dan cuts through the bugs easily and starts wishing for a tougher fight. Gary says he's just gotten a lot better. Monk also slices through the bugs with ease. Then Ray suddenly warns him to watch out and reveals a Hercules beetle is coming. Monk jumps aside and is shocked when the intermediate rank monster attacks him. Thinking it's still just a bug, Dan confidently attacks the huge beetle, but quickly learns its defense is insanely tough. He warns them more beetles are coming, and soon they're surrounded. Gary slashes at one with his sword, but he's shocked too by how hard its shell is. Everyone starts struggling. Martha's arrows can't pierce them, and even Sylvia's shield barely stops one before she's knocked back. Monk, Ian, and Dan get boxed in by the beetles and can't break free. Then a giant beetle crashes down nearby. Ray jumps in, using his new gauntlets and chi to fight them off. He punches straight through the Hercules beetles with ease, leaving the others stunned by how strong he's gotten. Dan notices the new weapon and freaks out over how powerful the gauntlets are. Monk explains that his martial arts club advisor loaned them to the protagonist, and Dan immediately regrets joining the wrong club. Ray keeps smashing beetles, but he knows he can't make it look too easy or the team might get suspicious. So he calls for help, and everyone joins in. Martha fires at the beetles with her arrows, while Sylvia finishes them with her sword and shield. At the same time, Monk, Dan, and Ian hammer the rest with their weapons. Once they kill them all, Dan excitedly says they're rich now, thanks to the intermediate crystals, and Monk even finds one. Just as Ray is about to absorb the beast crystals, birds suddenly burst out of the forest. He uses his dragon eye and sees fire spreading through the woods. MC warns the team about the fire, and Martha jumps onto a branch and confirms she can see the flames. Gary puts his ear to the ground and says beasts are stampeding out of the forest. Dan asks why they're still standing there. They need to run too. Ray realizes they won't get away in time, and fear starts spreading through the group. Panicking, Martha tells Sylvia to use the rescue crystal, but Sylvia says it isn't working. She already tried earlier. Dan can't believe it. When he notices someone coming toward them, he yells out, asking who they are, and sees 3 masked figures that look like assassins. Monk thinks they might be rescuers, but Ray says no way, and Gary shouts asking if they started the fire. One of the masked men signals, and the other 2 attack the kids. 2 of them go after Monk and Gary, while the man in red armor targets the protagonist. MC blocks and dodges with his gauntlets. Confused about who these people are, he demands to know why they're attacking. Using his eye, Ray checks the masked man's sword and realizes it isn't an ordinary weapon. Elsewhere, Dan catches Monk after the assassins strike, and Ian moves to help him and Gary. But the surrounding fire cuts him off and Ian calls out to them. Looking around, the protagonist quickly figures out the masked men set this up to split them apart, and starts wondering if they're after him and Gary. With Gary already busy, Ray assumes he may have to face 2 enemies at once. He tells Ian to leave and bring the knights. Ian protests, but Dan carries Monk away while Sylvia and Martha go with him to get help. MC asks Gary if he can handle this, and Gary says he can take one of them. He notes how fast the masked men are, but figures he'll survive as long as he keeps defending well. Gary keeps one attacker busy and buys the protagonist some time. Then both masked men lunge at the protagonist with a chain weapon. Reading the move, MC grabs the chain and avoids one strike. But when he looks around, another attack comes from a blazing sword. He jumps back, realizing this fight just got worse. He realizes every time he focuses on one, the other cuts in and ruins his opening. Then one assassin swings hard and catches Ray off guard. He slams into the ground, but his armor takes most of the hit. Seeing how well the 2 work together, Ray changes tactics. He notices Gary's arm is hurt and tells him he doesn't need to keep fighting. But Gary refuses and says he'll handle one of the masked men himself. Right then, one assassin goes for Gary, promising to kill him slowly. Since they clearly mean to murder them, Ray sees no reason to hold back and absorbs 5 beginner beast crystals. As the power builds, he transforms into a dragon knight, horns rising from his head, and summons his wolf. Noir appears, also evolved with horns, muttering that it's time to hunt. Seeing Ray use magic, one assassin panics, saying nobody told them the kid could cast spells. The other orders him to stay on mission, and both rush in. Ray recognizes the same setup as before and refuses to get tricked again, grabbing the sickle weapon. He tells Noir to move, then uses the chain to trap both assassins. They break free almost at once, and Ray isn't even surprised. He tells Noir to handle the one with the sickle, while he jumps the other. As Ray trades blows with one, the second charges him. But Noir cuts in just in time and attacks. The assassin mocks him, saying beasts like Noir are easy work, then dodges with his weapon. Ray keeps evading and realizes the man is using the same pattern again. That sword is a problem, so he decides to pin it down. He also notices the masked man avoids close combat whenever the chain isn't in hand and wonders why. To test it, Ray suddenly attacks the assassin and catches him off guard. Just as he thought, the man doesn't trade blows and leans away instead. Now that Ray has found his weakness, he glances at Gary, who's pressuring his opponent hard. Gary says they're students of Avrian, then stabs the assassin and demands to know why he attacked them. As Gary pins him with the sword, Ray shouts a warning. The other assassin sends a fire strike their way, but it hits his own ally instead. The stabbed assassin catches fire and screams for help. Shaken, Gary realizes these men will even kill their own teammates, and he moves to help Ray. But pain hits him, and he collapses. Ray tells him to rest and promises he'll rip these bastards apart. With his sword in his mouth, Ray says trash like this doesn't deserve to live, especially after throwing away their own comrades' lives. He lands a heavy blow on the masked man, but the guy survives. Ray sees he avoided the worst of it and realizes they came fully prepared, with special gear and weapons. His gauntlets are already cracking, so if this keeps up, his equipment won't last much longer. To buy time, Ray calls Noir again and sends him at the assassin. The man says the wolf is only intermediate rank and will die before its master. Noir circles fast trying to throw him off, but the assassin grabs the chain and snarls that he won't be looked down on. Then he catches the wolf with it. Seeing Noir trapped, Gary tries to help. The assassin aims to finish the wolf, but Gary jumps in and blocks the strike. Calling him stupid for risking his life for a beast, the assassin hits Gary again, even though he's barely standing. Gary crashes to the ground and his sword slips away. Still, he grabs the assassin's leg and tells Noir to take the sword and fight like Ray. The wolf picks it up in its mouth. As the masked man tries to kill Gary, who still won't let go, Noir slices through his head and cleanly takes it off. Now only one masked man is left. And as he looks at his fallen ally, Ray grabs the sword and strikes with everything he has. It still doesn't do much damage. But the assassin's mask shatters, and to their shock, it's Knight Lancey. Lancey pulls the rest of the mask off, and Gary, stunned, curses him for doing this as a teacher. Lancey doesn't care. He says Gary will die anyway and rushes him with his sword. Noir jumps in front and takes the hit. Ray tells Noir to stop, then unsummons him. Gary drops hard and lies there helpless. Lancey storms toward Ray, saying he'll kill them one by one. As Lancey comes in with a flaming sword, Ray thinks about how rotten people like him love causing pain. He decides to make him pay and catches the blade with his gauntlets. Lancey smirks, thinking Ray is wasting all his strength just holding it, and tells him to enjoy burning alive. Ray answers that Lancey is the one who's going to die, and Lancey mocks him, waiting to see how long he lasts. What Lancey doesn't know is that Ray is draining the fire element from the sword, and he notices when the flames start fading. Annoyed, Lancey calls him clingy trash and kicks him in the stomach, yelling at him to die. Ray finally lets go of the sword, sending both of them flying backward in opposite directions. With a few ribs broken, Ray decides it's time to use the fire element he stole, the only magic he can use right now. He mixes chi with fire to forge his own attack and gathers all his power. When Lancey sees Ray in Dragon Knight form shaping flames with chi, he's speechless, then says Ray really is a demon and should have been killed long ago. Ray just looks at him, thinking how pathetic humans can be. Lancey charges with his sword, but in a flash, Ray cuts off the arm holding it. Lancey stares in shock, wondering why the flame sword didn't react. Blood pours from the stump as he screams in pain. Then Ray grabs his face and presses his burning gauntlets onto it, burning him to death and saying he got what he deserved. Right then, Sir Kay and the other knights arrive. They identify the masked men as members of the Pureblood Guild and say Winford must be told. Kay tells Ray to hold on, but his body is badly torn up, and after saying everyone is safe, he passes out. The story then moves to the hospital. Ray wakes up covered in bandages and realizes he's in the infirmary. Sylvia is relieved to see him, and he asks how long he was out. She says he was unconscious for 3 days. Helping him sit up, she explains he got treatment in time and is healing well. Ray remembers his mouth burning, but now it feels fine. Sylvia then calls the others in. They've all been waiting for him. The team enters with Sir Kat, and the instructor casts a spell so nobody can overhear them. Confused, Ray asks what he's doing, and then notices all his classmates are there. Sir Kay says 2 students, Ray and Gary, were attacked and nearly killed. After speaking with Winford, he's decided to tell them the truth. But first, he asks Ray what he knows about the attackers. Ray says they were masked assailants. He couldn't identify 2 of them, but one was Master Knight Lancey. The whole room is stunned. Kyle says he always knew Lancey was shady, and Sylvia asks if this was the Dark Guild. Sir Kay says no, and that it would be simpler if it were. He reveals the attackers belong to the Pure Guild. Unlike the Dark Guild, they have support inside the academy, and rumors say one of the elders backs them. Hearing an elder may be involved, the students panic. They can't believe an elder would allow something this close to straight-up murder. But Kay calms them and says the situation isn't that simple. Ray asks what the guild wants. Since Ray probably already suspects it, Sir Kay says he gathered the red-haired students and the victims for a reason. Ray sums it up. They want to eliminate them. The twins stay oddly calm, but Ian freaks out. Kyle panics too, saying it makes no sense, since one of them is supposed to become the world's savior. Kay then explains there's another part to the prophecy. He says that 11 years ago, the prophecy claimed the red-haired child could become the world's savior, or the one who destroys it. Because of that, many knights put bloodline and birth above everything else. They couldn't accept that what they'd protected for generations might go to ordinary kids, and plenty still think that way. He adds that war is raging on Allura's borders, and they have to fight the shadows, deal with other nations, and keep the academy stable. But right now, the higher-ups can't expose the Pureblood Guild. If Allura starts breaking apart from the inside, peace won't last. After hearing that, Kyle asks if they're just supposed to let those people attack them. Dan looks a little relieved, thinking the rest of them aren't involved since they aren't the ones meant to save the world. Sylvia immediately snaps at him for talking that way about their friends. Sir Kay makes it clear they're all caught up in this together. He warns them to stay alert at all times because the guild is getting bolder. Sir Kay says he's placed watchers near them, and the knights will also keep an eye on them. Still, he reminds them there are only a few people they can trust, so they need to depend on themselves too. Gary quietly says the only answer is to train harder and get stronger. Sir Kay taps Gary's broken arm and jokes that people who only wait for others to save them usually die first. The students take it as his strange way of comforting them. Then he ends the meeting and tells everyone to leave because he needs to speak with Ray alone. A week later, the protagonist finally leaves the infirmary, glad to be out after nearly losing his mind in there. He thinks back on everything that's happened, including the gauntlets the old man gave him. They were damaged badly, so he needs to fix them. He also remembers Noir was hurt, and after using some intermediate beast crystals to heal him, MC knows he needs to go hunting again. But then he remembers what Sir Kay told him, and he can't relax at all. We flash back to the hospital, where he panics after learning he may be the one from the prophecy. Sir Kay explains that he stands out from the others. He points out that the protagonist's body recovered fast, even when he was close to death. Since MC is clearly hiding something, the teacher guesses he's also managed to use magic. He gets flustered and wonders how he could ever explain it. He even thinks about telling him the truth, that he had a past life as a dragon and once had black hair because some dragon traits were still left in him. At the same time, he's stuck thinking about that strange dragon system. Sir Kay explains that the Pureblood Guild believes Ray can use magic and warns him to be careful since he's likely their main target. Coming out of the memory, the protagonist thinks about how tough Lancey was and figures the next enemy will be even stronger. The scene then shifts to Elder Gibby. Furious that the mission failed, he mocks Lancey for being useless, saying he still couldn't kill a kid even with top-grade gear. Still, Gibby is pleased Lancey died before he could talk. His assistant reports that Kay and Winford already know their goal, and they won't be able to move against MC for now. Elder Gibby says they can wait. But for now, he tells the assistant to summon Delbert. They've ignored him for too long. Gibby plans to pull a few nails to test Delbert's loyalty, and then leaves. After that, Ray returns to the academy, where Monk and Gary welcome him. When they ask why he's hurt again, he says he fought the old man from the martial arts club. Dan can only wonder what kind of insane club that is. Just then, Martha and Sylvia come into the dorm and say there's a letter for Gary. Sylvia is happy to see the protagonist back, and Martha says he should fix his hair. Dan suggests shaving half of it off like his, which only annoys Ray since he has no interest in looking like Dan. Kyle cuts in and says MC should just go bald like him. Seeing him there, the MC asks why he's in their dorm, and Monk explains Kyle always wanted to move in. Since there was space, Sir Kyle allowed it so they could look out for each other. He complains that Kyle is way too loud, then looks at Gary and realizes something is wrong. A moment later, Gary rushes out of the room, and Sylvia guesses it's because of the letter. Dan jokes that maybe he got dumped, but the protagonist quickly runs after him. He activates his dragon eye and sees Gary heading for the roof. Ray hurries up there and finds Gary sitting alone. When he asks what's wrong, Gary says the letter was about his sister, Amy. MC asks what happened and Gary tells him she died. Ray remembers Amy and realizes he never got the chance to thank her. Now she's gone and he breaks down, tears running down his face. Gary then says he could never shake a terrible nightmare. In it, Amy was torn apart by monsters at Roland Magic Academy. She was left there helpless with countless nobles just watching. Gary starts crying too and says it wasn't just a nightmare, it was intuition. His anger rises even more when he says their parents also wrote that the nobles paid the family a large sum as compensation. Furious, Gary breaks the barrier and says that to them, his sister was nothing more than some country child. Ray stays silent and listens. Gary then shouts that he won't forgive them and will find the one who killed his sister. With tears still falling, he swears he'll kill them. He tells him he's in. Overcome, Gary grabs him and says he knows Ray awakened magic, can summon a beast, and use flames. He urges him to show the elders so he can transfer to the Magic Academy. But the protagonist refuses, saying his powers aren't that special, and if he tells the elders, they'll just watch him more closely. He pats Gary's shoulder and says he doesn't want to leave him behind. Instead, he wants them to find a way to leave Avrian together. Gary says that's almost impossible. They can't just leave the academy, and after graduating, they still have to serve for 2 years. Then MC brings up the upcoming academy tournament. If they place near the top, they can represent the school in the World Combat Tournament. That would let them meet people from Roland. Gary stubbornly agrees with him. The scene then moves to the third-year dorms, where Harry asks about the other roommates. The student inside says they're all getting ready for the academy tournament. Guessing it's that time of year, Harry asks if there are any strong contenders. The other guy says no, but hopes the second years have some interesting newcomers. Next, we move to tournament training. Kyle notices Gary has been pushing himself hard lately. Monk asks him if something happened, and he tells him to give Gary some space for now. Meanwhile, Gary keeps thinking he's too weak and slams his sword into the ground. Then Sir Kay appears behind them and tells them to follow him because he has something good for them. He brings them to the repaired equipment and tells each of them to choose one item. The students are amazed to see the gear recovered from the hunting grounds and start picking weapons. Monk gets especially excited over a breastplate. Kyle asks if he can choose two, saying he couldn't help during the attack. Sir Kay allows it and says the tournament is a good chance since all second years can enter. He explains that many wealthy families attend the event, and if the students perform well, they may get noticed. After graduation, they could even become guards for those families, which is a pretty good deal. Hearing that, Gary realizes doing well could let him serve a noble house. He smirks. Ray picks up Lancey's sword, but Cedric Case says it wasn't badly damaged. It just lost the power to channel flame magic, so now it's only a beginner weapon. He suggests picking something else. The protagonist then remembers he absorbed all the fire element from it and realizes that absorbing elements is even more useful than he thought. Later, he heads into a hunting forest and finds an area covered in ice. He enters the frozen zone, where monsters guard the place. Using chai and flame magic, he kills the monsters. When he sees a bunch of ice elemental golems inside, Ray is pleased and tells Noir to handle the ones on the left. 3 weeks later, the Avarian Knight Academy tournament begins, and the place is packed with visitors from many academies. In the waiting hall, students chatter among themselves when Martha runs over and says the tournament rules changed this year. Dan is confused because he thought it would be one-on-one duels, but before she can explain, the knights enter and the students get excited for the tournament. One knight calls up the top 5 second and third year students, Monk, Ian, Dan, Sylvia, and Gary step forward, making the others whisper since they're all from the same dorm. Dan thinks he only made it because Ray gave up his spot. The head knight then calls for the third-year students, and a third-rank girl named Cherry says Jura is away on a mission. Then she calls Jay, and a huge muscular guy steps out. The boy introduces himself as Jay Gree and says he's waiting for someone to challenge him, smiling like he's excited for it. The fifth-rank girl peeks at him and calls him an idiot. The students whisper as they realize Jay Gree is the academy's top-ranked student, and they're shocked he actually joined the tournament. Monk nervously asks Gary if they'll have to face the third years, and Dan already thinks they have no chance. Once the top 5 from the second and third years gather, the head knight announces that these 10 students will skip the first preliminary round. The students are stunned by that news. Kyle, who had been worried his friends might face third years right away, learns they'll actually be fighting alongside their roommates. The head knight goes on to explain that the first round will be a battle royale between second and third years, and 5 students from each match will advance. Then the knight calls Ian forward, points a wooden arrow at him, and explains that everyone will use the wooden weapons provided in the arena and start with 100 health points. She fires the wooden arrow at Ian to show that getting hit lowers those points. She adds that using Chai to defend will reduce the damage. Once a student's health reaches 0, they're disqualified and teleported out. After that, she orders the second years to get ready and choose weapons from the storage room. Later, Sebastian quietly tells Eric not to give Ray any opening once the match starts. Meanwhile, MC chooses a wooden sword since it fits him best, while Kyle picks a metal chain. Then the first event of the Avrian Academy tournament begins, and the participants are called out. The stadium is packed with people, and Kyle and Martha are completely overwhelmed as the knights and elders take their seats. Elder Vaughn looks at Ray with pride, feeling that it's finally his time to prove himself. And with that, the first match starts. The moment it begins, he is shocked when all the second years rush him at once. Then Sebastian strikes from behind with a wooden sword, and the protagonist instantly realizes they're teaming up to take him out. Eric shouts at the others to make sure Ray gets disqualified. Still bitter over getting beaten before, Sebastian keeps ranting about making Ray pay. Tired of hearing it, Ray tells him to shut up, then smacks his hand so hard that the sword flies out. He grabs Sebastian by the collar, and right then, 3 third years rush him with their weapons. Ray reacts fast and yanks Sebastian in front of him, so all 3 attacks land on their own guy. Eric panics and yells because they just hit their boss. Still in Ray's grip, Sebastian blurts out that he's a monster. Ray lets him go and throws him aside, saying he should be grateful he's only getting disqualified. Then he drives a hard kick into Sebastian's stomach and sends him flying. He crashes and rolls across the ground, while his teammates stare in shock. Sebastian looks at his health and sees it has dropped all the way to 0. He can only hang his head as the judges announce the first disqualified student. Furious, Delbert slams his hand on the table after seeing his son Sebastian go out first. At the same time, Ray's raw strength starts scaring the other contestants. He tells them to come at him all at once since he's ready now. Angry Eric yells at everyone to stop hesitating and attack Ray. But even Eric is clearly too scared to make the first move, so Ray jumps at him instead. Terrified, Eric screams for him to stay back, nearly crying. Ray twists his arm until the sword drops, then stomps and cracks his feet. Watching Ray tear through the fighters, Jay Gree is impressed by the red-haired kid's power, but Knight calls him brutal. Knight says this event was meant to show the students' skills, but it turned into a chance for Ray to go wild. She doesn't know the second year's plan to gang up on him first, and now he's just beating them fairly. She also notices that each of Ray's hits only takes about 20 health points, thinking someone could have died if he used more force. Sylvia and Ian worry because the students are getting badly hurt, but Gary folds his arms and says they deserve it. He makes it clear there was no way that cheap plan would ever beat Ray. Meanwhile, Ray keeps battering the other players, breaking arms and knocking 20 health points off with each hit. Dan is stunned and wonders if any of them even know how to use chi. Sylvia says they do. Ray is just too strong for it to matter. In the crowd, people start whispering that Ray is too savage, too uncivilized, and nothing like a knight. One even says someone like him should never have been allowed to enter. The second they start trashing him, Ray turns and fixes them with a deadly glare. The people freeze under that stare, feeling killing intent so strong they can hardly believe he heard them at all. One elder says they should stop the red-haired boy, but Elder Vaughn cuts in. No one stopped the others when they all jumped him first. The elder still worries Ray might kill someone. Vaughn stays calm and says Ray is being smart by making sure they can't gang up on him again. He also reveals Ray is his student and says he'll take responsibility if anything happens. That leaves the other elders speechless. Even so, Vaughn is secretly worried Ray might lose control. In the third year section, the third-ranked knight Cherry says the top 5 are probably already decided. She mocks Harry Delbury, saying it's a shame his brother was the first one out. Harry laughs it off and says it's fine. His father spoils the younger one too much anyway. Meanwhile, the second-year roommate group, Martha, Kyle, the twins, and Ray, starts taking over the match. They keep knocking weapons out of the other students' hands. As players cry out in pain, Eric curses Ray as a dirty mongrel and swears he'll kill him and his parents if he gets the chance. The moment he brings up Ray's parents, he realizes he just made a huge mistake. Ray instantly snaps and walks toward him in fury. Broken and helpless, Eric begs him to stop, unable to run with his limbs already wrecked. Ray grabs him by the head, and one of the elders becomes sure he's about to kill the silver-haired boy. Staring him down, Ray says he shouldn't even dream of becoming a knight, then activates his mana and starts draining Eric's. Eric freaks out as all his mana gets sucked dry, and Ray finishes him with a heavy punch that drops his health to 0. Eric falls limp onto the ground after the beating. The elders realize Vaughn was right. Ray doesn't keep attacking once someone's out. Vaughn quietly relaxes, glad the boy at least stopped breaking more limbs. A sudden arrow flies at Ray, but he dodges it without even flinching, and a girl knight tells him to let the boy go. Ray smacks the boy down and throws him aside, while the girl keeps firing arrows at him. Ray avoids everyone with ease. That starts to rattle her, because she can't believe he's dodging everything. Soon she runs out of arrows and Ray moves in, grabbing her by the neck. Then he starts draining her mana too. Someone in the crowd suddenly screams for him to stop, calling him a monster. The man yells for him to get his hands off his daughter, while others try to calm him down by saying she'll just be disqualified if he steps in. Realizing the man is her father, Ray starts thinking about his own dad. His father gave everything to the country and saved countless people, but met a terrible end. Painful memories flood back. His father's final wish was for Ray's mother to kill him after the Plague of Shadows took over. Ray grits his teeth and tightens his grip even more when someone suddenly stops him with a chain. It turns out Kyle wrapped his metal chain around Ray's arm to hold him back. With a dark look, Ray asks Kyle and Martha why they're stopping him. As their own health ticks down, Kyle tells him the girl is innocent, so he doesn't need to go that far, and Martha adds that she hasn't hurt anyone. Meanwhile, the twins Sloth and Badger step in to save the girl and tell Ray he's gone too far. The people who jumped him were already punished. The other twin tells him to act like a gentleman, and Ray finally steps back. He remembers all the times his roommates stood by him at his lowest. Grabbing his head, he wonders why it always ends up like this. All that pain buried inside him boils over and he screams, asking what they even know about him. His roar kicks up a violent whirl and Ray starts losing control. Rage takes over and he dares them to stop him by force. Going mad, Ray yanks Kyle's metal chain and pulls him right in. Without hesitation, he drives a punch straight into Kyle's stomach, then slams him to the ground and drops his health points. Barely thinking straight, he tells Kyle to train his Chiang better if he wants a chance. Then Martha fires 3 Chiang-covered arrows at him. But he dodges them like it's nothing and snatches the arrows out of the air, leaving Martha stunned. Then Ray throws the blazing arrows back at Martha at incredible speed. She barely dodges, but he still lands a hit and warns her not to hesitate if she wants to beat him. Looks like the MC still has time to lecture his roommates while crushing them. Martha also hits the ground and he tells her to read his moves instead of watching where he's standing. Soon Sloth and Badger have had enough of him beating his friends and rush him from behind. Then fire bursts out from within him, shattering the ground, and the twins are blasted back by the force. They seem mostly fine, and Ray tells them to think before they move. When they charge again, he tells them not to waste time trying to ambush him. He smacks both of them, and they end up on the ground in pain. Seeing all this, Sarah turns pale and realizes Ray is terrifyingly strong. The crowd is just as shocked, calling the red-haired kid a monster no one can match. Nearby, the third-year Knight Nye thinks that if Ray still wasn't top 5, then the real top 5 must be on another level. Meanwhile, Ian and Dan Loki already feel beaten. After that, only Sarah is left, and Ray walks straight toward her. She trembles and gives up right away, knowing she can't beat him. His hand is wrapped in chi, and Sarah's father screams at the judges to stop him, sure that Ray is about to kill his daughter. But to everyone's surprise, he finally comes back to his senses, lightly taps Sarah on the head, lowers her health points, and even apologizes. Sarah leaves, confused, and her father and the crowd can't believe it ended like that the boy didn't really hurt her. Then the results are announced. The 5 students who qualify are Martha, Ray, Sloth, Badger, and Kyle. A little later, he leaves the arena, and the judges tell everyone to rest before the third-year Battle Royale starts that afternoon. The elders are impressed by MC's performance. One says that if he ever went on a rampage, few could stop him, but Elder Vaughn defends him and says MC could save many lives. At the same time, Knight Gilbert quietly tells the Master Elder they checked the students. It was mana deficiency. For now, they can't use Tri, and there's no guarantee they'll recover. Hearing that, the Master Elder decides not to discuss it any further. He already has enough to worry about. Inside the training room, swords clash while students talk about how hard the second years trained that afternoon. Gary is going all out against the puppet, and after many strikes, he gets past level 12 and beats it. Catching his breath, Gary still isn't happy. He wants to reach a level where he can stand beside Ray. Then he remembers Sir Kay saying rich families come to watch the tournament, and strong knight students can get picked as personal guards after graduation. A very good deal. Thinking of that, Gary decides this still isn't enough. He has to aim higher. Watching the blonde boy fight so fiercely, Cherry recognizes Gary as the top second year, and asks Harry what he thinks. Harry says he likes the other one better, the puppet. Cherry keeps fussing over Gary, saying the boy has a nice face, and kind of reminds her of Harry. She agrees he could be doing better, and Harry walks up to the puppet. With a bright smile, he starts level 12. He barely moves, fighting the puppet from one spot, then flicks his sword once. That single motion makes his strike far stronger, and Harry clears level 12 with ease. Gary realizes Harry copied all of his moves, Afterward, Harry says it didn't seem that hard, and Gary immediately knows he's picking a fight. Cherry gets excited for the show while the students are shocked to see a cross-grade clash about to happen. Just then, Sylvia rushes in to find Gary and grabs his hand, telling him to get a good spot because the competition is starting. As she drags him off, Gary tells her to stop, and Harry just laughs. Once outside, Gary asks why she stopped him, and Sylvia calls him stupid and knocks some sense into him, saying he could have lost his right to compete if he fought outside the ring. Gary realizes she's right. Sylvia says she knows he can win, but he needs to stay calm for now. As the afternoon round is about to start, Sylvia asks if he's seen Ray. Gary says no, he vanished right after the first round. Then they hear someone talking and go check it out. To their surprise, it's Ray speaking with Sir Winford. Gary wonders what those two are doing together. Then Ray admits he doesn't want to compete anymore, leaving his friends stunned. Winford asks if he's serious about quitting, and Ray says yes. When asked why, he can't explain it. With a sigh, Winford says they'll talk later, since he has to oversee the tournament, and tells Ray he'll respect his choice no matter what, which catches him off guard. As Ray walks down the stairs, he runs into Sylvia and Gary, and they quickly say they didn't mean to listen in. He asks if they heard everything. Sylvia says only a little, but Gary blurts out that they heard all of it. They admit it, and Ray says it's nothing important. As he starts to leave, Gary stops him, asking if he's going to break their promise and let his sister's death get buried like it meant nothing. That makes Sylvia realize why Gary has been so stressed lately. Ray says he could never forget her. She was human, and she was his first friend. He adds that he truly does want revenge for her. Sylvia says she knows he's scared and hurting. His heart is full of rage toward the people who attacked him, and he probably feels awful for hurting his friends and innocent people too. Trying to comfort him, she says none of this is his fault. She wants him to know no one is mad at him. Then she remembers how Kyle, Martha, and the others all look up to him, and were already talking about beating him next time. Gary agrees and tells him that even if he was treated badly before, now he isn't alone. He has them, and they'll always be his family. Gary promises he won't leave his friend to deal with this alone. After that, they head to the grounds, where Martha says the competitors are almost here and they took long enough. Seeing Ray and Sylvia arrive together, Dan jokes that they'd rather be with each other than watch the competition. Then he notices Gary trailing behind like a third wheel, and Gary doesn't look happy either. Sylvia asks Martha if there's anyone important to watch, and Martha says all the third years are strong in different ways. First is Harry, an elegant fighter and the only one who hasn't been hurt at all. Then there's Gio, a big powerhouse with explosive strength who can even challenge the first place guy. Samir and Mizuhiro are fan experts with great teamwork for offense and defense, even better coordination than Sloth and Badger. While they were looking for the last player, Ray spotted Molly training and seemed impressed that she made the top 5. Then the judges congratulate the 5 winners of the third-year bracket. Now the main event begins. Winford announces that after 2 rounds, the field has been narrowed down to the final 20, while praising the second years for doing far better than expected. He glances at Ray, wondering if he'll join in. Ray nods, making Winford smile, and then he explains the new rules for the tournament. The screen shows the new matchups. The second years are paired against third years, which makes them think it's unfair since the older students have had an extra year of training. Gary is matched against Harry, and he's happy with that draw. Sylvia, though, has to face Jay Gree, the Academy's strongest, so she starts doubting herself. Jay says it's a shame he didn't get Ray, and Harry admits he's wanted that fight too, now that Ray has gotten stronger. Jay says he'll get his chance against the red-haired boy eventually. Sylvia's brothers watch from above and regret missing their youngest sister's match today. One says they rarely come to Avrion, so they should let her show them around, but Marsh wants to go later because he has to meet an elder first. Then Winford announces the finals will be the next day, and everyone should be ready since weapon and gear limits are being removed. The second years realize they'll have to match the third years in equipment too. Dan grumbles that the older students have the advantage, while Ian says they should treat it like special training. Monk is especially stressed. He has to face Molly, a black belt senior, just to improve. Ray is set to fight Jura, who still hasn't shown up. He doesn't mind, figuring it'll be easier to relax against someone who isn't a second year. As sunset nears, the protagonist asks Gary and the others if they aren't heading back. Gary says they're staying to train more, and MC watches him go at it hard. He knows this is one fight Gary can't afford to lose. Harry is that strong, so he quietly hopes his friend wins. Then we cut to a flashback. Winford is glad he changed his mind and says it's a relief. He brushes it off, saying his friends kept pushing him. When the protagonist asks if there's anything else he should know, Winford says he can't say much, but the top 10 will earn the right to represent Avrion in the World Combat Tournament. That shocks the red-haired boy, because he remembers there are only supposed to be 5 winners. Winford admits it involves the Pureblood Guild, and the elders will explain after the tournament. He just doesn't want MC to miss this chance, and MC understands. Back in the present, MC never expected this competition to cause so much trouble. He wonders what the Pureblood Guild plans to do next, then suddenly notices a slip of paper. It says, "Meet me at the arena at 9. The message makes him uneasy. It feels like a trap. Kay and Winford warned him not to act alone, but this may be his only chance to use his powers freely. He looks around and realizes he still knows almost nothing about the Pureblood Guild or the Dark Guild. If he wants clues about his father, he needs information. So he decides to use the dragon eye and catch whoever sent it, trap or not. Right then, Jae walks up behind him. Jae says it's funny running into Ray now, and he's finally glad to talk to him after dealing with those ugly people earlier. It's Jae, the strongest third year. He immediately asks if he's with the Pureblood Guild. Confused, Jae says no, he just wants to fight, since they won't get that chance in the tournament. Jae keeps pushing for a match right now, but MC politely refuses. He's not in the mood. That only irritates Jae. Ray had hoped for a real lead, not some musclehead with too much free time. Then Jae suddenly swings his huge sword at him. To Jae's surprise, the protagonist catches the blow with his dragon turtle gauntlets. Shaken by the ambush, he asks if Jae is crazy, and repeats that he doesn't want to fight. That confirms Jae's suspicion. MC's strength is no joke. Jae gets excited, saying nobody has ever stopped that attack so easily, but he couldn't care less. Jae swings again, and this time the force sends Ray flying back. The protagonist digs into the ground with his gauntlets and is stunned by the power, thinking Jae is as strong as Taurus. It becomes clear he may have to fight. Jae won't let him leave unless he's beaten. Then Ray spots someone behind Jae, even as Jae charges again. He instantly knows the masked figure is from the Pureblood Guild. The moment he realizes it, rage flashes through him. He uses Cha and shoves Jae aside before throwing a punch at the masked man. Then MC rushes him and unleashes a blazing attack. But the flames vanish the instant they hit the man's lance. Seeing his attack erased like that, Ray guesses there's something special about the lance. A second later, they get interrupted by the big guy again. Jae, annoyed, demands to know where the masked man came from and snaps that nobody should butt into his spar. Proving he's a pain, Jae immediately challenges the masked man too. The leader simply waves his hand, and more masked fighters appear, surrounding Ray. Jae clashes with the leader and complains it's cheap to bring backup, but he also seems to enjoy it. Meanwhile, he is already fed up with Jae, and thinks he's more annoying than flies. He draws his sword. One masked attacker rushes in with a slash, but Ray jumps clear. In the next instant, he vanishes. The henchmen look around in shock until one warns them not to drop their guard. The protagonist is a black belt knight. A few 10 seconds pass, then MC appears and strikes at one of them. His sword slams into the man's head with a clang, but another enemy uses chi to knock Ray's weapon away and disarm him. The others rush in together, all attacking at once. He avoids the blows with help from his turtle gauntlets and gets shoved back by the force. He quickly realizes these assassins are strong and their weapons are too. If he hadn't used the ice golem's protection, his gauntlets would have been damaged again. He freezes them over to protect them and figures normal close combat won't work anymore. At the same time, Jae and the masked leader are locked in a brutal fight, with Jae calling him a slippery eel. The leader thrusts his chi-covered lance with huge force, but then something unbelievable happens. Jae catches the lance with his bare hands. Holding it tight, he asks if the man really thought that could hurt him. Dust blasts out from the impact as Jae admits he isn't great at controlling his power, but in a real fight, he doesn't need to be. He boasts that he has far more chi than most people. To others it might be poison, but to him it's fine wine. With a vicious grin, Jae charges, sword blazing and chi wrapped around it. He goes wild, smashing down with insane force while the masked man barely blocks with chi. Then Jae finally grabs the man's mask and lands another heavy blow, sending him flying through the air. The impact triggers a huge explosion so massive, even Ray is stunned, wondering if humans can really be that powerful. Jae looks at the mask in his hand and says, the guy's weapon must be pretty good if it survived that hit. He tosses the mask aside and mocks him for being too weak, but the man still gets back up. To everyone's surprise, it's Gira. Jae just laughs, barely shocked to see his classmate Gira, another third year. He taunts Gira for hiding so much all this time, and now that he's exposed, Gira looks furious. Enraged, Gira lunges at Jae. Jae blocks it with his sword. Elsewhere, Ray is still struggling against 5 henchmen. They're a pain to handle, but he's at least glad Jae is keeping the leader busy, and figures he owes him for that. The protagonist freezes one enemy's arm, but another comes at him right away. Then Ray vanishes again. Hidden above, he tries to buy time for his mana to recover so he can finish them off. The henchmen warn each other not to get ambushed and shout that they know he's running out of steam, so he should come out and make it quick. At the same time, Jae throws another massive strike, but Jiro leans back and avoids it. Jae asks how much longer he's going to keep hiding. Then Jiro pulls something from his armor, a small bottle. He opens it, leaving Jae confused. Watching from above, Ray realizes what it is, and his eyes go wide. It's a plague of shadows. Jiro drinks the purple potion, and a strange violet aura surrounds him. Jae feels at once that something is wrong with his chi. The purple energy surges out, and Jiro loses control, transforming into a terrifying monster. Ray yells for Jae to watch out. Jiro, now a plague of shadows, suddenly lunges at Jae, with his spear. Jae is shocked by how much stronger he got and knows he has to dodge, but before he can, Jiro drives the lance into his chest. Stunned and bleeding, Jae realizes Jiro's speed and power are at least 10 times higher than before. He knows if the next hit lands, things will get ugly fast. Ray feels the danger below and knows he has to finish the henchman now, before the fight turns. Right then, one of them spots the red-haired kid and rushes in to kill him, but Ray makes it clear he's done wasting time. He smashes the guy with his blazing gauntlets and drops him hard. At the same time, Jira keeps pressing Jay and taunts him, saying he's not as strong as people claim. Jay gets slammed back, then digs his sword into the ground to stop himself from flying away. Shaking, he admits he's not used to being pushed onto defense, but he's not done yet. Jira says this is where Jay's story ends. He tells him to die, then charges again with the spear. Jay's body locks up. He can't dodge and he can't even move. It looks like the end as Jira brings the lance down with crushing force. But Rei appears just in time and catches the spear with his frozen gauntlets, stopping it cold. Jira stares in disbelief and looks over at his henchmen, only to see all 5 knocked out. That shocks him even more. The red-haired kid beat 5 elites alone. Rei takes the opening and uses flash freeze on the spear. Jira lets go and jumps back. Badly hurt and still bleeding, Jay thanks Rei for saving him. Rei tells him to leave the rest to him, but Jay quickly warns him about the weapon. It's made from a crab spider demon's carapace, tough, able to reflect damage, and coated with a neurotoxin that can paralyze anyone it cuts. Keeping that in mind, Rei decides he has to end this fast. He releases his chi and flames burst around him. The fight starts up again and Rei keeps slipping past Jira's fast attacks. Then in an instant, Jira finally lands a hit on Rei and shifts his weapon, slashing and smashing him away. Thrown back hard, Rei realizes Jira's weapon can even change form. His chest plate is shattered too, and his gauntlets are worn out from blocking. Panting, he knows one more solid hit could finish him, and he still needs to get his sword back. That's when Jay Gree calls out. Knowing Rei needs a weapon, he throws him his sword and tells him to use his baby. The moment Rei catches that huge sword, he nearly freaks out from how heavy it is. He can barely hold it, and the blade starts dragging to the ground as sweat pours off him. Rei is stunned by the weight, and Jay just admits it's insanely heavy, and tells him to swing it. Using chi, Rei knows he has no choice. If he doesn't swing now, they both die. Flames flare up, and he finally lifts the sword and brings it down at Jira. The blade crashes into the spear, and Jira says it's useless. His spear, he reveals, is built to counter heavy weapons like this. For a second, the clash between them crackles with tension. Then Rei uses ice and the sword starts freezing over. Jira panics as the spear's tip begins to freeze too. With the spear locked against the sword, the ice spreads fast and shatters it apart. Jira watches his weapon break into pieces, but that's not even the worst part. Rei swings one last time and drives the sword into him, ending Jira for good. Jay praises Rei for that brutal attack. Afterward, the ice-covered sword slams to the ground. Rei pants hard, thinking that one strike used almost everything he had. If it failed, he would have lost the fight. Then he tries to use mana siphoning on Jira, but the system says he can't absorb mana from an infected target. That confirms it. Jira was infected with the Plague of Shadows. More than that, he did it to himself after drinking the vial and turning his chi purple-black. Rei starts connecting the dots. It looks just like the Dark Guild, but the Pureblood Guild is supposed to be separate. So if Pureblood had that potion, the two groups may be linked somehow. Then the dragon system tells him he's unlocked a new ability, Glamour. Rei notices he always seems to gain new skills in life or death fights. Still, he puts that aside for now and checks the bodies, searching Jira for anything suspicious. He finds the purple potion bottle, and that turns his guess into fact. This wasn't some random find. Someone is making these on purpose. Holding the bottle, Rei feels danger all through the academy. He can trust Winford and Serkei, but he still has to stay careful. For all he knows, this potion was made inside the academy itself. The shadows have already gotten in, and the students have no idea their lives are at risk. As Rei burns Jira's body to erase the evidence, he starts thinking the higher-ups may be hiding this on purpose. Maybe the head knights or even the 6 elders. After that, Rei goes to Jay and thanks him for throwing the sword, asking if he's okay. Jay says he's fine, then jokes that his baby suits Rei and asks if he's really a mage. Rei admits he knows some magic, and Jay says that's awesome. He's never seen a mage fight like this. Rei says he wants to keep his strength quiet for now, and promises to explain later. Jay agrees. Rei did save his life. Dead serious, the big guy says he owes Rei everything and tells the red-haired kid to call anytime he needs help, even if he has to jump into hell. Rei tells him that won't be needed and says he should focus on his injuries before the competition. Then he summons his wolf and says Noir will carry Jay to the infirmary. Seeing that, Gree is left stunned. Rei can even summon beasts, and now Jay feels dumb for ever thinking he could beat him. While riding Noir, Jay asks if Rei needs healing too, but Rei casually says his body is a little special, so he'll be fine by tomorrow. Before they leave, he tells Noir to take a hidden route so no one sees them, leaving Jay speechless that the beast follows every order. The next day, Rei goes to the weapon shop to get his armor repaired, and they tell him it'll be done by sundown. As he walks through town, people start whispering when they recognize him, the same red-haired kid from the competition. Still, they keep their distance, remembering how ruthless he was. Rei ignores them and thinks these humans are clueless. After that, he enters a room and stands before a mirror. There, Rei decides to test his new glamour skill. To his surprise, he turns into someone else entirely, with black hair and gray eyes. Nearby, some girls head toward the tournament grounds, talking about whether they should watch the matches, since they still haven't finished their hunting mission. They know the second years are strong this time, so the finals should be crazy, and they want to see what kind of knights nobles like most so they can aim for that too. While they talk, a black-haired guy walks past and they instantly admire him, totally charmed by how handsome he is. It's Ray, and he figures glamour costs 5 mana every hour. With his current mana, he can keep it up for 8 hours as long as he doesn't fight. People keep passing by, staring at him while he thinks working alone should be easy now. Then he remembers how someone offered him a cheaper healing potion just because he looked like an adventurer, and someone else tried to sell him an inn room with a great tournament view for a fair price. Being this handsome, Ray realizes this won't be as simple as he thought. People treat him completely differently just because his face changed. To him, that says a lot about how pathetic this world's mindset is. Just then, he spots Sylvia and calls out to her through the crowd. She gives him a confused look, and that's when Ray remembers. He doesn't look like the red-haired boy anymore. So he quickly covers by saying he knows she's one of the competitors who passed the prelims, that she's from the Hart family, and that he's happy to meet her here. He adds that he's looking forward to her match tomorrow. Trying not to be rude, Sylvia asks his name since he seems to know her family. That makes Ray drift back to his old life as a red dragon, when people used to fear him and hide whenever he appeared. Back then he was called Sen. He only snaps out of it when Sylvia waves a hand in front of him, and he apologizes before introducing himself as Ness. He asks where she's going, and Sylvia says she needs a blacksmith to adjust her one-handed sword's weight. Since he was heading there too, Ray figures walking with her won't draw attention. He asks to come along, saying he wants a new breastplate. He asks if her sword was made with a high-grade beast crystal. Sylvia says it came from a fin tiger crystal her family sent last night for the tournament. Ray realizes nobles can get gear like that easily, while normal kids would need years to earn it. Since he's an adventurer, Sylvia asks if he often takes dangerous jobs. Ness says he does missions near the border, which makes her wonder if her family would ever allow that. They'd think it's far too risky. Sylvia admits that once she leaves the academy, she'll have to return to her family, so she's jealous of how free adventurers seem. That hits Ray hard, bringing back the memory of his father, an adventurer, who died after risking his life. He quietly tells her, no one here is truly free. Then they hear an explosion. Alarmed, they look around as people rush by yelling that there's a fire. The two run toward it. At the blast site, the owner of the burning building is left in shock. Ness and Sylvia push through the crowd and hear that a merchant's carriage had stopped near the inn with what looked like beast crystals. Not long after, the place exploded. Ray asks if the merchant survived, and a bystander says he was taken to the infirmary. Nearby, a woman is sobbing. Her 2 children are still trapped inside. Sylvia rushes forward to save them, but Ray grabs her hand and stops her from going in. With a sigh, he decides to go himself. Sylvia warns he'll be burned alive. He says he can use ice magic, then cast Frostvine to cool the flames. Sylvia is stunned to learn he's a mage, but the fire suddenly flares up even worse. Ray heads inside anyway, covering himself in ice for protection. He knows he has to move fast. If he keeps burning through mana like this, his disguise will fail and his real identity will show. He activates Dragon Eye, finds the children on the top floor, and hopes they stay put. Outside, the fire spreads fast, and falling rocks start threatening the people nearby. Just as one is about to crush a man, someone uses a water snake spell to beat back the flames. Sylvia turns and realizes it's her oldest brother in a soldier's uniform, and she's thrilled to see him. Using water magic, he says it's been a while. With the fire under control, Ray reaches the children and brings them safely outside. Their mother runs straight to them. Sylvia asks if he's okay, calling him Nez. Ray had already made sure no one else was still inside. Then Sylvia's older brother calls out to the others, asking if they plan to just stand there. 3 more brothers show up. One tells him to stop complaining. They aren't as fast as he is. Then they greet their little sister. To Sylvia's surprise, all 3 also use water magic and cast different skills to put out the rest of the blaze. When a night arrives, he thanks Sylvia's brother for helping stop the fire before more people got hurt. The brother says the real credit goes to the mage who risked his life to save the children. But Ray has suddenly vanished. He asks Sylvia where he went, since he was just there a second ago. Ray had to flee right away because his mana was almost gone, and his disguise had already dropped back to his real face. Panting, he thinks that was close, but he escaped just in time. Still, he confirms something important when the system gives him 2 new skills. He gains abilities by risking his life. The first, Endless Void, lets him create storage space to keep and pull out items. He plans to use it in his real form to hide all the gear tied to Nez. The second skill is Mana Sharing. That reminds him of his days as a dragon, when he could save many dying allies with ease because his mana was endless. He admits the spell won't help much right now, but later it could be priceless. As he walks, Ray thinks that whatever the prophecy brings, he'll need an army to change this world. Mana sharing could help his followers grow stronger, as long as he has enough mana to support them. After saving those 2 children, he realizes the system doesn't reward him for beating strong enemies, it rewards him for saving lives. What confuses him is getting 2 skills this time. Was it because he saved 2 people? Back in the Minotaurus fight, several lives were at risk, yet he only got 1. He starts wondering what really decides the number of spells he unlocks. By the time he reaches the Academy Hall, he's still thinking it over. Maybe it only counts when someone is truly on the edge of death. He decides to test that idea later. Seeing the hall packed, Ray wonders what's going on. Then he realizes the families have come to visit their kids. Ian watches everyone reunite with their relatives. Kyle nudges him and jokes that they're family too, trying to cheer him up. They laugh it off, while Gary stands alone in a corner, clearly not expecting any visitors. Elsewhere, Sylvia meets her brothers and complains that they didn't warn her ahead of time, especially since even Max has grown so much. The oldest says they wanted it to be a surprise. Max shyly adds that after 2 years apart, a simple hello would have been boring. Then Sylvia suddenly blushes, staring at someone. Her oldest brother asks if she spotted a friend. She calls out to Ray, looking at the red-haired boy. Her brother recognizes him as the reckless kid from round 1. Max is excited and asks if this is the guy Sylvia talks about all the time, casually exposing her crush and making her panic. Friendly as ever, Max walks over, thanks MC for looking after his little sister, and says they should get to know each other. MC doesn't look too happy about it. Sylvia quickly apologizes for Max and awkwardly explains that he can be a bit rough. Then she introduces them as her brothers. The oldest brother doesn't love his attitude, but since Sylvia clearly cares about him, he stays polite. He introduces himself as Marsh and tells him to look after her. Blushing hard, Sylvia cuts in and says she can take care of herself. When the protagonist shakes Marsh's hand, he can tell right away how powerful the man is. His mana feels nearly endless. MC says Sylvia is a natural leader, and usually the one taking care of all of them, which makes 2 of her brothers chuckle. She then introduces the other 2 as Johan and Jekyll, both serving in the military like Marsh. Next she explains that Max studies at Roland Magic Academy. Max happily says they might meet again at the World Combat Tournaments if he wins, but he reacts sharply, shocked that he goes to Roland. Max asks what's wrong and wonders if the protagonist knows someone there. The protagonist quickly asks if he knows a girl named Amy. Hearing the name, Max tries to remember, but says he's not sure. Roland is a huge city, just like Avrian. Desperate, Ray explains that her full name is Amy Blueblood and that she recently died in an accident. He asks if Max knows anything. Max can't recall anyone by that name but promises to ask around when he returns and tell Sylvia if he learns something. MC can't hide his disappointment, though he still thanks Max for trying. Then the mood shifts. Marsh tells his brothers time is short and the head knight still needs them. He tells him and Sylvia to rest, and Sylvia waves goodbye, saying she'll show them around the academy after the tournament. As Ray and Sylvia leave, Marsh keeps watching them, then asks Max if he just lied. Nervous, Max admits he did. He says he lied to the protagonist about Amy and doesn't know what to do about that girl, so he asks Marsh what he thinks. Marsh tells him he made the right call. MC is strong, dangerous, and not even a little intimidated by them. Worse, Marsh can't read what he's thinking at all. Max asks if they should stay out of his business, and Marsh agrees they should keep their distance and watch what happens. The story moves to the finals. The contestants wait in the ready room. Kyle and Monk are nervous, and Sylvia is especially shaken because her first match is against Jay. Sylvia is clearly nervous and asks Ray if it shows. He calms her down, telling her to fight like she always does, and not stress too much about the result. She admits she really wants to make it to the World Combat Tournament. In her family of mages, she's the only one without magic. She still can't forget how ashamed her parents looked because of that. Seeing how serious she is, Ray asks if she truly wants to win. She says yes right away. She has to prove herself. Sylvia wants to show she can be just as great as her brothers, even as a knight. The protagonist suddenly takes her hand and leads her away. At the same time, Kyle says the match is about to start, and Dan jokes that they're getting all romantic before the fight. In private, MC says he'll lend her his strength for a while. Fire rises from his hand, and Sylvia stares at it. He says he's helping her now and hopes she'll help him too when he needs it. Sylvia blushes. Then she says she wants to become his strength too. Ray uses his new spell, Mana Sharing, and transfers his power to her. He tells her to use his chi only when needed, and warns her not to go over the limit or her body will be damaged. As his chi flows into her, flames flare around Sylvia. Shocked, she realizes he can give his strength to others, something she's never seen or even heard of before. She can't help wondering how many secrets the protagonist is still hiding. Soon the final match is ready to start. The crowd gets excited when Jay Grease steps out, wondering if he'll go easy on a second-year girl. The fight between Sylvia and Jay begins. Any equipment is allowed, and 2 Master Knights will judge it. The commentator adds that if a fatal blow is about to land, they'll stop the match and announce the result. Both fighters enter the arena, with Sir Winford on Jay's side and Sir Kay on Sylvia's. Once the match starts, Monk doubts Sylvia can win. Martha believes in her, but Dan points out the obvious. Jay Grease is a huge powerhouse and strong as a bull. Ray quietly agrees and remembers Jay had been badly injured before, but now he looks fully recovered. Even with MC's power, Sylvia can only win if she's skilled enough. Then MC locks eyes with Jay. Jay suddenly starts yelling in the arena, waving his sword and asking his boss if he should lose to this girl. He is left wondering what that idiot is doing. The protagonist tries to ignore him, while Dan guesses Jay is talking about him. The crowd is confused, wondering why Jay is calling a second-year student his boss. Then Jay shouts MC's name for everyone to hear. Embarrassed, MC snaps at him to stop yelling and just fight, while Dan realizes he was right. Jay proudly says he'll do his best. Pointing at Sylvia, he explains he thought she was his boss's girlfriend, so he almost went easy on her. Blushing hard, Sylvia quickly says she's not his girlfriend, they're just friends, and tells him not to hold back. Jay immediately jumps in and swings his sword. Sylvia dodges and the heavy blade slams into the ground. She instantly realizes she can't block a hit like that with her shield. If she tries, her arm will break. Jay comes in with another attack. Sylvia jumps away and avoids it again. She admits he's insanely strong, but he also leaves a lot of openings, so she decides to test one. She slips behind him and thrusts her sword into his back. To her shock, the Fin Tiger sword can't pierce his skin. She doesn't even leave a scratch. His muscles are that tough. Jay swings again and she barely blocks with her shield. Realizing normal strength won't be enough, Sylvia decides to use Ray's power. The next blow shatters her shield, and she gets thrown back. Stumbling, she forces herself to stay upright. Then she activates the protagonist's power, deciding to end this fast within 10 minutes. Fire bursts from her body. Jay is surprised by the totally different aura and gets excited now that the fight is getting interesting. She throws away the broken shield. Sylvia's power surges at once, and she rushes Jay with crazy speed so fast that even he can't track her properly. Still, Jay assumes her speed alone won't be enough to hit him, but he loses focus for a split second when she moves even faster than he expected. She appears behind him and drives her sword into his stomach, drawing blood. Jay's eyes widen in shock. He mutters that lately he keeps getting surprised one after another. His classmate Cherry is stunned that Sylvia actually hurt him, and Harry Delbert admits he thought only Ray could do that among the second years. The crowd goes wild for Sylvia, with some even calling her a goddess. Her brothers watch proudly from the stands. Max yells for her to beat Jay up, but Johann and Jekyll tell him not to get carried away. The fight has only started, and Jay still hasn't gone all out. Marsh, though, is impressed. Sylvia is doing better than expected, and her clean, efficient style proves she's made to be a knight. Of course, none of them know she's using Ray's power, not just her own. Meanwhile, Dan says the hit looked amazing, but it only scratched Jay, and Kyle nervously says his body must be made of metal, using Ray's chi. Sylvia realizes she still can barely injure him, but she also notices Jay relies too much on his natural toughness and doesn't focus his chi well enough to guard his weak points, leaving plenty of openings, so she decides to keep attacking the same spot and force a chance to win. Moving fast again, Sylvia slashes Jay's wound and makes it hurt even more. At the same time, Jay smashes the ground with his sword and Sylvia hops away to avoid it. She dashes in again, aiming for the wound on his lower abdomen, but suddenly her energy starts fading. At the worst moment, Ray realizes she's run out of time. Shaking, Sylvia tries to hold herself together just a little longer. But in one instant, Jay strikes, her sword flies from her hand and she's disarmed. He takes the opening and swings hard at her, while her classmates panic, sure she's about to get badly hurt. Then Winford calmly stops the sword and says that's enough, while Sir Kay catches Sylvia in his arms. Jay apologizes, saying he got carried away because it had been a while since he'd fought a girl this good. The judges then declare Jay Gry's the winner, and the crowd cheers. Afterward, Monk is shocked by how strong Sylvia had become and thinks it's too bad she still lost. Martha says that by the end of third year, Sylvia might surpass Jay. Next up is MC versus Jira. His friends wish him luck, and as he walks out, he already knows Jira won't come because MC burned him to death. Still, he has to show up to keep appearances. On the way, Jay praises Sylvia and calls him boss again, and he silently agrees that she fought well. Once the protagonist takes his place, the commentators call for Jira to enter at once. The crowd starts buzzing, wondering if he overslept, ran away, or just chickened out. Cherry asks Harry if he's seen Jira lately, since she hasn't seen him since the tournament began, but Harry says he hasn't seen him either. To everyone else, Jira seems to have vanished. In truth, he already died at the MC's hands. Meanwhile, the head knights discuss his absence, and the crowd grows restless, waiting on someone they barely care about. The announcement finally comes. Since Jira never showed up, he's disqualified, making Ray the winner by default. The crowd is disappointed, and starts saying the whole thing feels rigged. Marsh is disappointed too since he wanted to see MC fight, and Max sighs bored because he had really hoped to watch him before possibly facing him in the future. Next up are Badger and Sumar. Badger is shaken without his twin, Sloth. They've always done everything together, even sharing a toothbrush, which grosses Dan out while he tries to cheer him up. He says he's going to check on Sylvia, and Martha teasingly tells him to send her regards. Kyle sulks, saying he's got it easy, and he wants to fall in love too. On the way to the infirmary, the protagonist thinks Sylvia wasn't badly hurt, and he also needs to take his chi back. He asks if she's okay, but Sylvia just hides under the blanket. Then she apologizes for losing even with his power. Ray tells her she still did her best, but Sylvia calls herself useless and starts crying. MC tries to cheer her up, saying Jay is basically a monster built out of muscle. She knows he's trying to help, but says that doesn't excuse losing. If a strong beast attacks out in the wild, failing to protect everyone means everything. Those words hit him hard. He remembers his old life as a dragon, and how he failed to protect his own kind. Pulling himself out of that painful memory, he thinks no matter how strong they get, they still can't save everyone. Through tears, Sylvia says she wants to protect the team and Ray too. That makes him realize something. She doesn't even have half his strength, yet she still wants to protect everyone. He'd been keeping some distance, thinking they didn't need him, but maybe it was the opposite. Then he takes his power back, drawing his chi out of Sylvia. One thought stays with him. He already failed once as a dragon, and he refuses to fail again. He tells Sylvia to rest and says Martha and the others are worried about her. As he turns to go, Ray firmly tells her she doesn't need to protect everyone. That's his job. Then he leaves and Sylvia blushes, flustered. Back at the arena, people are buzzing. After hearing a second year just beat an upperclassman, the first real upset so far. The protagonist wonders who it was. Then he sees Kyle won against Nye, the third-year knight. As Winford names Kyle the winner, he grins and reminds Nye about their date. Wrapped up in his metal chain, she shyly agrees and asks him to let her go. Ray is in shock that Kyle won, but he is stunned that the red-haired baldy actually scored a date. After that, the next match is Gary versus Harry. As Gary enters the arena, people expect an easy win for the first-ranked fighter. Then someone points out Harry is Knightmaster Delbert's son, shocking the crowd since they thought Delbert's only son was the snobby Sebastian. MC meets back up with the group and tells Martha that Sylvia is okay, just upset. When he asks about the matches, Monk says Sloth and Badger lost like everyone expected. They can barely function apart. Still, Kyle pulled off a win and even got a date out of it. Dan loses it, wondering how even that baldy managed to charm a girl. Is that the power of love? Monk says Ray came back at the perfect time because Gary's match is starting and everyone wants to see it. He asks if Gary will win, but he can't say. Deep down, the protagonist remembers he hasn't fought Harry since losing to him in first year. Back then, Harry claimed he was only ranked 50th, but the protagonist knows he was holding back, so now he quietly hopes Gary beats him. Meanwhile, Gary steps in fully determined to win. The fight starts, and both rush in at insane speed. Their swords crash together, and Harry starts laughing. He mocks Gary, saying he can't even feel any strength behind his attacks. Angry but controlled, Gary says he hasn't been holding back. Then he goes all in, launching a non-stop assault that actually gives Harry some trouble.